Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I do thank you for tuning on in today. Beautiful Monday, as it's finally, after a very long week, after a very long off season, after that May-June period that just seems to go on till time never ends, we finally find ourselves here at the season starting position. Sunday, game one, on deck for your Seattle Seahawks. The wait is over for what hopefully is going to be a really, really good season. And you can start to feel a little bit of the national perspective drifting and changing on this one. Certainly the Chiefs preseason game and how the Seahawks played in preseason in general is shifting some of the outlook of this team as it stands, but you can already on top of it feel a little bit of people a little bit late to the hour here, realizing this team is going to probably be a little bit better than they all had the foresight of thinking back 3 or 4 months ago, which is cool to see. But hey, we were already hip to this. We already knew that this was where this team's at, where they're going this upcoming year, and it is very cool to see. Here at the channel here, we've got some really cool, exciting news I wanted to drop on you guys today, and that is that we've got a sponsor for the show here for this upcoming season. That's going to be Sleeper. Sleeper is now sponsoring this channel. Sleeper is the best way to experience and connect over sports together. It's a one-stop shop for all of your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat on games in real time with other users. Get the fastest scores, blazing fast news, and alerts right at your fingertips. Play in fantasy leagues, win real money today on picks and contests. So you can enjoy sports the way they were meant to be, together. I want to thank Sleeper. It is an app you can download, and you've got the picks on there, over-unders. You can do some individual fantasy things on that side of it. I have a code you can use as well, which is NEST. That's NEST. That will get you matched up to $100 on your initial deposit. So $100 in your pocket, just supporting the channel here on that side of it. And you can use code NEST. Now, there are some restrictions that do apply in the state of Washington, but those restrictions are going to be eased up here once we get on into October, I guess. We're going to get a little bit more of an ability to use more of the app in full, but you can already get on there, play around with it a little bit, and again, get that dollar matched up, that $100 up to $100 freebie into your pocket. Thank you, though, to Sleeper for sponsoring the show this upcoming season. Really looking forward to working with them and getting you guys some great picks throughout the course of the year. Couple things I want to talk about today, not a super expansive show, but just a couple of items that are kind of on my radar that I wanted to discuss that, kind of had propped up a little bit. And I've got to first give a lot of props to Seattle Seahawks fans in general in the way that they've reacted to the Micah Parsons trade, because I think sometimes you see a trade like that that's so thoroughly one by one team, at least on the surface of things, by the way people are viewing it across all fan bases and delineations. And that is that you tend to have a fan base that would then say, well, why weren't we in on this? Why didn't we do this? We could have done that. We had the arsenal of picks and a player we could have gotten, then we could have gotten Micah, and then we could have been even better for it. And I know I expanded on some of this in the video breakdown that I did of Micah Parsons on the day the trade kind of went down. But I think even more in retrospect, having a couple of days to think about this and this trade and why the Hawks didn't make it and why, again, there was such a smart reasoning process behind why they didn't make it. And I think I say it's a smart reasoning process because this is one that on the surface of it, you had every bit the assets to throw at the Dallas Cowboys that the Green Bay Packers were able to throw at the Cowboys. You could have matched that offer. We know in John's case, he's not shy about going over the top of somebody else's offer. I think that's what you had to do to bring in Percy Harvin. That's what you had to do to get a Jamal Adams in here. That's probably what you had to do to get a Jimmy Graham in here. So John's not worried about necessarily kicking in an extra second or third round pick if that's what's going to allow us to get the deal done versus you. But this was a deal that just didn't quite align up and make the sense for the Seahawks to pull this. And the final factor is you got to build into a little bit here that you do have a coaching staff here in Aiden Dirty has very much an awareness of Micah. And I think the part that I didn't talk about in that video a couple of days ago that I do want to touch about here is I'm not going to shade on Micah Parsons as not being a phenomenal player. He is. But what's being talked about right now is because he's had more than 4 sacks in his first 4 years. He's had more than 10 sacks in his first 4 years. One of the only players to do that, Reggie White, blah, 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 blah. So everybody starts to make this jump of this is the equivalency of Reggie White coming to the Green Bay Packers. You could have gotten a Reggie White and you didn't go out there and get it. And again, I got to give my Hawk fans a lot of credit because I'm not seeing much, turmoil out there as regards to not having done this trade. But that's where there is the difference on this, where I'm not so sure that that's the way we would, look at this situation of it's a Reggie White equivalency. And the guys that are being paid across this sport, Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, up at this modern, in fact, they're making now $5-6 million less per year than Micah Parsons is. Those guys may be a little older, but they're much more complete defenders. They're much more guys that you can count on off the edge to be able to handle the run game, to set a hard edge. And that was going to be something that you were going to be missing a little bit with Micah if you brought him in here. It's not that he's a purely bad run defender, but this is a former inside linebacker converted to edge. He sometimes is going to lose some weight out there and some ability to really kind of anchor down against some of these tackles that are really strong out across the league and get pushed around a little bit. Maybe sometimes get a little bit too caught up in rushing the passer, not playing the run. And so he is a really, really good player, and I don't want to take away from that. And as a pass rusher, he is absolutely elite. But the price that you're going to have to pay, the insider knowledge that I have to wonder on this one a little bit, being that Dirty knows that this situation is at play. Seahawks have the cap space to spend here to make this happen. He out there and he's pounding the table hard to John on this, saying, you've got to get this player. This guy's amazing. He is Reggie White. Does John show hesitancy knowing his track record of a past of being super aggressive in these moments and being willing to jump out there? I think he would be a little bit more. I think if anything, you could take a little bit of it's just a small little pull from this to say that maybe Dirty came in there and said, you don't want to give up all these assets. Maybe you don't want to pit this guy at a $47 million contract. Maybe you're not going to get, the returns you think you're going to get back for him if you go down and do that down the line on it. So everything on this in retrospect from this deal to me has just been smart from the Seahawks perspective and not doing it. Green Bay was in a different perspective of where their football team is at. They're a little bit more further along the path, and being ready to make this kind of move. If you make this over the top move, to me, you really want to cement everything else around your team. Offensive line's good, skill position players are good, running back's good. We've got our, they don't have great corners there, but all right corners, these good safeties there, inside linebackers good. You want everything kind of on point, and then this is a move you do to push you over the top. You don't want to still be like, well, we have a question here. Let's go make the aggressive move right now. Let's go take this over the top. So I would say that, again, it's a smart move on the Hawks side of this, not to gone down this pathway. Completely understand that they were probably in on the deal and considering it. But when they put it all into the wash on this, it just didn't come out, making a lot of sense. And as much as I was kind of pushing a little bit for this deal a couple of months ago and thinking about this as being something the Seahawks should wade into the waters of, I've got to admit that the more that you hear about Micah and some of the whispers coming out of Dallas a little bit, especially just about commitment, all in, which is, this is what you've gotten from this team, is all-in commitment, full buy-in from everybody across the board, full participation at OTAs, voluntary OTAs this offseason. Just come back to, again, is I don't know if it's as much that locker room fit here as it could have been, and that you had plenty of guys in this locker room from Dirty, John Hankins, DeMarcus Lawrence, plenty of guys that could have given you some insider information on this one to say that if you want to go make this deal, you could go make this deal. You should go make this deal, John. This is a guy, bring him in. The cost is not too great. You're going to be happy with this. I have a feeling that it kind of maybe went a little bit of the other way on this particular deal in regards to some of the advice John was getting in this situation. Don't know for sure. It is absolutely a guess, but it's just a minor guess at that. I also think there's some reverberations from this trade that are worth noting on this deal. And the first one is that now you have a team in the NFC that sort of signaled you want to be aggressive, you want to go for it. Here's the buying cost. Here's the price. And if Green Bay shoots out to become an elite team this year, if they look like they're going to be able to get their hands wrapped around that bye week for the first round of the playoffs, you're coming up to the trade deadline as a team that's playing well, maybe up in first place. There is a potential here if it locks in like a lot of people think it will for Green Bay defensively, and then allow the whole rest of the team to lock in with it. Because it wasn't a bad defense, but that this sort of takes that defense over the top, and that the offense is so consistent and they're so well balanced and they can attack you in a variety of different ways that bam, that's how you get this team into a really big problematic spot for the rest of the NFC conference in general. So does this then mean and signal that you're probably going to have to make some supplementary moves to sort of stay with the Joneses, if you were, to stay with the Packers, if you were? Probably so. Probably one of these teams out there is going to have to do that. And looking at some of the cap space, I've got to say that it's noteworthy to me and stands out to me as well that you don't have a couple other teams diving into these waters or potentially diving into these waters. We know that there are a lot of teams out there that were looking at Parsons, but I see a team like the Cardinals, for instance, who could have flipped back maybe an Ojolari and something else. They had some capital, and now what that would have done to their defense. The Lions, little bit of an uncertainty with Aiden Hutchinson and how he's going to come back strong this year, if he can come back as strong off of that real major leg injury. I know that they don't probably want to pay two guys $30 million, or not $30 million, man, the cost has gone up. You probably don't want to pay two guys $47 million at the same time as far as the Lions. They know they got to pay Hutchinson, but you would thought there would have been another couple teams maybe would have been more aggressive to come in here. Props to the Packers for doing it. But this does mean in a lot of ways to me that as an NFC potential team that could be in the mix on this when we get down to the playoffs, that the Seahawks have got to be looking to that trade deadline to see where there could be a place for them to improve the team. If they're ready to go, if you're a 5-2 team around the trade deadline, if you're up around that first place mark, maybe if you have a middling year, it just doesn't make sense. And this is a year where you just kind of get through it a bit and get to next year, save your money, roll the cap over, get the young players signed extensions and call it a day. But absent that, if you're actually good, this to me really does probably push more hardline. The Hawks are going to have to make some kind of significant move before the deadline. And just, again, supplementing, again, just keeping up with the Joneses on that side of it. We got some news as far as finally our offensive line. We all had hoped that our starting offensive line could be announced week 2, week 3 of the training camp period. Get it done, get it locked in as soon as absolutely possible. So these guys can get cogently, cognitively, cohesively on the same page. Fortunately, we are not getting that announcement here until we're about a week and a half outside of the first opening game. Now, on the positive front of this, on that side of it, you do have an offensive line that's basically played all together as that number one unit through a lot of this training camp, save for maybe one position here or there, and you have the Charles Cross injury, but I think he'll be fine coming back in there and good. It's really the center position that's gone back and forth, and that was the one that was ultimately the biggest competition. Bradford basically won the right guard spot as much as anything, I think, because there wasn't a really quality right guard to push him there. Haynes with the pectoral injury wasn't ready to take a step forward. Lumea doesn't look like he had really progressed hugely from his rookie year. And so with Cable Duo and Richmond looking solid, but still not guys that are ready definitely to start at this point in the league, it becomes kind of Bradford's job. The good news is that he has been out there working with Lucas on one side, working with the centers on the other side. There is a little bit of continuity there at play on this line because these guys have been your basic starters as it stands. But I think it's also interesting when you take the center position. I think that it speaks to the fact that going with Sundell and having him be your starter center, and that they're such two different physical quotients that these two guys bring in Oluwatimi. Oluwatimi's your pass protector, athletically not the greatest. He'll get to the blocks. He'll find a way to get it done, but he's not a great mover in space. Not a great go get a reach block kind of guy. Then you've got in Sundell the guy that's kind of completely on the other opposite end. Maybe there's some pass protection limitations that you worry about a little bit there with him, especially if he's got a one-on-one take on like a nose tackle. But as far as getting out in space, climbing to the second level, hitting those reach blocks, he can do all that stuff. And so you really went with the guy that was going to be the better run blocker at the center position. And this is just nothing but more of the sign here that the upcoming season, the Seattle Seahawks team is going to run the damn ball. They're not coming into this year to just kind of say they're going to do it, then they fall away from it like we've had happen in other years. The commitment is there, and it's hard-lined in there. And I love this addition to Sundell. You saw in the Chiefs game with his movement in space and his ability to reach and get to certain blocks that other centers wouldn't be able to get to, what that can do dynamically for your run game, especially if a couple of the other guys are getting their job done in a really nice way. And that's how you end up getting to these holes where they're just huge and wide open, like we saw in a couple of the preseason games this early on this year so far. So Sundell comes in. He is going to be your starter. Would have loved to see the starters announced a little bit earlier, but understandable that you had to kind of let this thing kind of play out a little bit. And in Oluwatimi's case, it's also a little bit like we talked about where he just had the injury hit him, as Mike said, at the wrong time. It was an even Steven kind of battle. Oluwatimi was step for step right there with Sundell, but then the injury comes up, and unfortunately, that's sometimes just enough to sink you just a little bit if it's by a nose, so to speak. So Sundell will be your center. The mobility of this offensive line is going to run center point here. When you go back to the origin story of the Shanahan offense, you go back to those mid-Denver teams in the 90s. They were teams that were lighter offensive linemen that could move in space. That's what the preference is. And again, you've got it all across this offensive line. Charles Cross, Abraham Lucas, they can move in space, absolutely. Bradford was an athletic freak coming out. I know he's big. I know he's not always the quickest out of his stance, but the guy can move in space and move well in space. And absolutely, Gray Zabel is a former left tackle convert to left guard. He can do that too as well. So you have built up a line if you're looking for shades of a mid-90s Broncos-style team with the athleticism, with the quickness to hit to certain blocks that a lot of offensive lines in this sport can't get to. You're able to do it, and uniformly 0 through 5 on this offensive line right now. And very important because I can go back through other years where you brought in a Waldron who's supposed to be bringing in some more mobile offensive linemen with his onset, right? But then you're rocking Damian Lewis out there at guard. You're rocking Laken Tomlinson out there at guard. You're rocking Gabe Jackson out there at guard. And so you just didn't have always the most athletic guys across the board to make the system work. And the system is based, Waldron's system was based on this especially, in having some of the mobility and having these guys be able to do more than just take one step to their left and take one step to the right and hit a block and push a guy out of the way. That you can actually be comfortable out there running out in front and you're going to hit your block, your targeting systems are going to be right. I think that this is where you're going to see and feel this year. And this is what's made this scheme run and roll for 4 decades now, is having these kind of offensive linemen that can do that. So very excited about what this offensive line is going to do. I believe this running game is going to come really far forward this year and be much more effective than it has in the past. I wasn't as much of a buyer in to some of what the organization was trying to sell early on this offseason and telling you and I that, it really is scheme. It really is coaching. It really is player development. It felt a little bit at the time like maybe there's a little bit of hollowness in there where it's a little bit of scapegoating. You blame it all on that, and it doesn't have to be your inequities in actually going out there and finding the talent. No, it's not me, it's them. No, I didn't do anything wrong. It was them that did wrong. There was a little bit of that feeling initially when you hear him talking about it in that way. But I think that as we've seen the rubber meet the road here, and we've seen John Benton's effect and the play calling of Kubiak's effect, that you start to stand back and you go, oh, okay, there was maybe some validity to this. Maybe they weren't just pumping smoke up our butt, but we're actually getting something that adds up. This tracks, as they would say on that side of it. So your offensive line is ready to roll. I believe your running game is going to be very effective this year. And just off the back of these 2 changes, has it come significantly forward as far as the talent goes? No. But is the talent that you do have going to be better presented, is going to be better prepared to play on Sundays, is going to make less mistakes, it's going to be detail driven, is going to have players athletically that fit very purely to the system and what it wants from its offensive linemen? Yes, you better believe it. Under center, play action, include that in there. Rollouts, include that in there. All of this to help out the running game. All of this to make it get, buffed up just a little bit on that side of it. And the guy that I think is going to be the biggest beneficiary of this offensive line, and a guy that I think is going to light this thing up this year, is Kenneth Walker. A big debate that's right now raging in the fan base as it stands is Zach Charbonnet or Kenneth Walker. Who's the guy to go with? Who's number one? So Charbonnet's earned number one. With Walker not being able to be healthy, man, Charbonnet's just earned it. What are you going to do, Walker? You got to be out there. Best availability is the best thing, man, at the end of the day, and you just can't stay healthy, man. And look at Charbonnet. He looks better this year. We got to go with Charbonnet, man. So they're back and forth. I get this fight. I think this fight's a little bit born out of, if I have to say, that when you have 2 second-round draft picks, people are going to kind of play favorites to one or the other. And that's a little bit at play here, is that you just aren't used to having a backfield where there's 2 guys that are this high quality at the same time. And so it has people kind of pulling a little bit of the game like you'd have with a backup quarterback and a struggling starting quarterback. And I understand it, but I also think people are losing sight a little bit of just how good Kenneth Walker is. And again, coming back to the thing I just talked about with this offensive line and the excuses that were kind of given as to what's held back this offensive line specifically in the ground game, being system, play calling, and development. And that those 3 things all come real far forward. Walker is going to be the biggest beneficiary of that. And he's been a really good player, but you can't undersell the fact that this guy has just been inundated at times with guys in the backfield right after he's getting the carry. And does he dance too much? And does he need to cut that down? And does he need to get more, just put your foot in the dirt and get down and go and take the dirty 3 sometimes when that, yeah, sure, there you can make a little bit of that. But this is even one where I don't get this criticism, because this is the same thing of, if you have a quarterback that gets hit for 9 straight weeks, 10 straight weeks, every time he's dropping back, are you really going to blame him that in week 12 and 13 and 14, he starts flinching? The whole point should be to not get them smacked every time they're dropping back to pass. And in Walker's case, it's not that he's been a blind man with the rock as far as his vision, and he's always bouncing it out. He's always like leaving an open hole to bounce it out here because he's looking for the big play. It's that the man is used to getting just, basically beaten up in the backfield before he's even gotten to the hole. I presented the stat to you guys, and I showed this a few times, that on just A and B gap runs, those runs that are between basically the center shoulders and the guard shoulders, A and B gap, that on those runs last year, your Seahawks were 32nd in the NFL, were 0.6 yards. They averaged just 0.6 yards before first contact. Eagles on the other side of that at number 1 was Saquon Barkley at 2.7. 2.7 versus 0.6. 2.7 versus 0.6. That's not a small difference. That's not just some little, just tiny bit. That's a big, major deal as far as impacting running back effectiveness. And then Charbonnet found a couple of games where he was able to kind of bust out, juice up his stats a little bit. I think that's kind of tricked people into thinking, well, that must mean that he might even be a little bit better than Walker when it's all said and done on that. Quite the opposite. He just got a little bit better blocking at a certain time of year than Walker before Walker had gotten injured, partly injured because he keeps getting sandblasted after he gets the carry every single time. But a stat that was presented that I think does show this and should get you hyped up here for Walker's upcoming year and why I think he is in line to have a very big upcoming season. There was an elusive stat that came out here, and that is the top 20 most elusive running backs over a 3-year span. So you're looking at this over a good amount of almost a 20-year period, and you've got a lot of running backs. It's a 3-year span, so we're not looking at whole careers. We're not trying to get a guy that's gotten more productivity over 6-7 years, and a guy's got a sample size of 2 years. It's taking stock 3-year, like comparison to like comparison to like comparison to like comparison, and a lot of running backs over that time. A lot of running backs over that time that you're picking through at this point. But what's interesting about this first, before we get to the Walker side of this, is number one, the Seattle Seahawks of the top 20 running backs over this essentially 20-year period have essentially 3 of the most elusive running backs this sport has seen. Marshawn Lynch, Chris Carson, Kenneth Walker. It's very cool at the top of this list to see Marshawn Lynch at number 1 over Nick Chubb at the 29.4%. That's most elusive rushers, so that's per rush, how elusive you are. That far right column is kind of the one you want to pay attention to, in my opinion. You can also look at the per game on this as well and get a bit of a feel for that. But when you look at Walker, who's down there at 13, and if you look too, you can find Chris Carson there at 15, so just 2 spots below Kenneth Walker. But Walker sitting there at 23.8% versus Marshawn Lynch's number 1 at 29.4%. So not that far away as far as elusiveness. And elusiveness on this is going to be yards after contact plus missed tackles. That's how they're calculating this. So it's not just after you first get hit, it's also the missed tackles you're able to force, take the combination of that, spit that out in the wash, and that's how you get these particular numbers that you're looking at on the other side of it here. And so this guy is not just kind of, he's a little elusive. I mean, he's got some moments he can do some things. He's got some sparks, some flashes here or there. No, last 20 years, one of the most 20 elusive rushers this sport has seen. And if you give this kind of guy that's so good after yards after contact, that's so good at creating missed tackles, now you start getting this guy consistent holes. He is going to light the world on fire. Does health have to be the overall factor, maybe beyond anything else? Yeah. Is that really the only question in my mind at this point? You better believe it. It's not whether this system is going to be effective for him, whether you're going to open holes for him. It's just whether his health will hold up. And that's the question none of us know the answer to as it fully kind of stands in this situation and kind of comes to shake out in the wash. But make no mistake about it, Walker's not merely just a pretty good back. Walker can be a great back in this league. And you've not, absent the first 10 games, go back and look at his stats through the first 10 games of his rookie year when he actually had an offensive line that was functional. Not great, not dominating, not opening up holes as big as the Grand Canyon, functional. And he was able to go out there and really cook it up. He was able to go out there and bust 75, 80-yard runs. And he's going to do that. He's going to house some big-time runs this season over the course of the year with the opportunity he's going to be given by this offensive line, the system, the scheme, Ben's coaching, Kubiak's play calling. It's all going to work together with his elusiveness and tackle-breaking ability, combo up nicely for this kid to have, in my opinion, what's going to be the best season of his NFL career, and put the Seattle Seahawks in a big-time pickle after the year as to whether or not they're going to look to want to give a guy who's had some injury concerns throughout his career there with you, coming off his best year, a big-time running back contract. Because slow but surely, these running backs are starting to get paid bit by bit, more and more over the past couple of years, and we might see more of this getting driven in this way with running the ball becoming more of an important factor at play now than ever before. But very interesting noticing this stat and seeing how many really cool names of guys on here. Chris Johnson, Dalvin Cook, Jonathan Stewart, James Conner, Jonathan Taylor, Fred Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Le'Veon Bell, Derrick Henry, Adrian Peterson, Nick Chubb. These are not just, third down backs that occasionally got some touches and got to be a little bit elusive. These are the best running backs of their era of the last 20 years. And he is in the company of these guys. So be frustrated with the injuries as you may with Walker. Sometimes be a little bit frustrated with him that, maybe turning down a hole to try to open something up a little bit bigger. I think that's going to go away a bit this year. The system doesn't really allow you to freelance as much as the other systems do, which might save Walker from himself on those kind of runs. But make no mistake about it, Walker's going to go out there and he's going to cook this year. And he's going to make a lot of people look silly if he can stay healthy and thinking that he doesn't have that big 1,500 type yard season in him, a 15 touchdown type season in him. I think he absolutely does. And I'm really, really stoked for this upcoming season for him, especially for a guy that's just had to trudge through the mud and just the deep snow, week after week. You can just feel what a hard job it's been for him to try to get to the other side of it and to find some yards, reverse field, spin out of this tackle, break this tackle. Okay, now I'm just barely past the line of scrimmage. Let's go find what I can go find out in front here and figure it out now. Now, hopefully some of those days are going to be over with now, and he's just going to just light it up. I'm very hopeful for it, but I also wouldn't tell you that I think it's happening if I didn't think it's happening. So I drafted him in my fantasy league. I'm ride or die with Walker this year. I think it's all going to come together at just the right time for our guy. If you guys can for me today, please do hit that like button. We'll do a little bit of chat interaction here today, see where your guys is at from a head standpoint and how you guys are feeling coming into this season and whatnot on that. We got a good number of shows on deck here this week. We'll be coming back with, of course, the NFC West Roundtable tomorrow. We got Behind Enemy Lines here with Jesse on Wednesday from Last Second Sports. Really looking forward to having him come on at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time on Wednesday. We got the B&B show on Thursday. Thursday night, members only stream there as well. 1 second, be right back. So a lot lined up here for you folks. A lot lined up. A couple donations. Thank you guys. Always kind of you here. Kyle from South Park in the house. Kyle, how are you doing this day? Hope you're having a good one, man. Thank you for all your support recently. You've been just tremendous, brother. Dropping a $10 donation. Here's a thought for the roundtable. Kyler Murray is 7-9 in September, 4-10 in November, 8-15 in December, 2-3 in January. He has 0 touchdowns and 5 interceptions when the team is down by 7 in the last 2 minutes since 2022. His QBR is 34% in that. Ooh, I like that, man. I will try to bring that up tonight. I will absolutely try to bring that up, Kyle. That's some good stuff. So we got Kyler Murray 7-9-1 in September in his career, 4-10 in November, 8-15 in December, 2-3 in January, 0 touchdowns, 5 interceptions when the team is down by 7 in the last 2 minutes since 2022. His QBR is 34% in that. So a lot of really good stats in there from Kyle that I think kind of in a lot of ways, Kyle captures a little bit of my argument I was pushing onto the NFC West Roundtable last week, because I had a lot of Cardinal fans get pissed at me for basically saying they're only going to win 6 games this year. And I think the Cardinals have been a bit falsely inflated throughout this offseason. I think, quite frankly, the past 2 years, the Cardinals have been a bit falsely inflated for where people think and how good people think they are versus really how good they are. And I think Kyler is also a bit of a microcosm of that. No pun intended, due to his size. But I think he is a microcosm of that in the respect of he is emblematic of exactly what the team is in that way. Not a guy that's bad. You wouldn't say that about him, but is he a guy that you go is good? And I watch Kyler and I watch him play the quarterback position, and I do just find him at times to be a guy that's sometimes too much feast or famine. Sometimes a guy doesn't use his legs nearly enough. But you touch upon another part there where, when it comes down to the chips being down and he's got to come up and make a play, everybody likes to tell me, or a lot of people like to tell me that, the measure of a quarterback, Kyle, is what you do when the game's on the line and you got to drive your team. Like, that's where you're at your most tested. That's when you have to be at your best. And yet, like you say with the stats that you've mentioned here, he has 0 touchdowns and 5 interceptions when the team is down by 10 in the last 2 minutes since 2022. And let's face it, they've had probably more than a few of those moments, right? More than a couple. And his QBR is 34% in that. So this kind of confirms from a stat-driven spot what my eyes sort of tell me watching Kyler Murray, which is I watch him and I say, look, there's some big throws he can make, and he's definitely got some natural talent for the position, but there's limitations here. There's active limitations, and that are not going away anytime soon just because the Cardinal team might get a little bit better. I think you could have put these limitations, in my opinion, with the Cardinals reduced with Kyler. You could have gotten him to a place where you could take some of this down, but that would have required you to beef up the offensive line. That would have required them to get more playmakers on the outside than simply Greg Dortch and Michael Wilson outside of Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride. And I just feels like they haven't gone quite hard enough to give him, for a guy that you're making the highest paid quarterback and player in your team, that you give him enough of a supporting cast if you're going to choose to go down that road. I think the Cardinals have also, though, by taking this approach, by building the defense up like they have and putting the money over there to the side of the ball like they have, I think that they've kind of signaled a little bit of this. Like, we don't think that there's a benefit in beefing up all that stuff for Kyler to get him at his best. It'll be kind of like sunk cost, or we're better to put the resources over here. I mean, there's a little bit of an indictment in that way in a little bit for as far as Kyler goes and just their direction and the choices that they made with that. It's also just kind of where I've got a little bit of a sneaking suspicion here that even the Cardinal organization, the owner, the general manager, are already side-eyeing a little bit of how they're going to be able to get out from under this deal. I don't think that they're sold on Kyler. They're running through it. They're stuck in the contract because that's the downside of signing guys to these big-time deals. You can't just get out from under the contract. You got to kind of wait it out a little bit, wait for a couple of the years to bleed off, and then you can finally pull the trigger there. But it'd be interesting to watch what Kyler does this year. I got to admit they had a really tough schedule last year. I got to admit that they played really strongly against that tough schedule, and I have certainly been a guy that's been wrong on Gannon in that, he's been legitimate for them. He's been a good coach for them. But I just think that they still have too many limiting factors, and I'm not feeling this offseason. I'm not feeling the direction that they took. Josh Sweat's a good signing, that's fine. Calais Campbell, good signing, that's fine. But the rest of what you did, I'm not feeling. I didn't really feel outside of Will Johnson much of their draft. A guy here, a guy there, maybe. But interesting stat there, man. Thank you for presenting that, Kyle. Another $2 donation from Kyle as well. Says, Cards aren't making the playoffs while Murray is quarterback. Not in this division, in my opinion, Kyle. Not in this conference right now. I agree. And I'm just as low as I've ever been on Kyler Murray when it really comes down to it. I don't think that guy's game has grown significantly since he's entered the sport. There's obviously questions whether they're fair or not, a little bit about his work ethic. I don't know if they're fair, but there are those questions that are there. Hell, your ownership alone put in a contract rider for you to study a certain amount of hours every week. I mean, if that doesn't scream you got work ethic issues, I don't know what does. And then that adds up to what you watch with him on the field at times, where I don't see a player that's advancing along to a huge degree in how he's playing the position. I don't see a guy more in control now, 5-6 years into his career, than he was when he first walked in. So I agree with you on this. I think the Cardinals don't have a strong enough team in general to get there, and I don't trust in really Kyler Murray. And I think he's one of the quarterbacks in the sport, in my opinion, Kyle, that's been given a lot of benefit of the doubt by the general fan, that they've looked at him and sort of been like, yeah, he's solid. Rather than really looking a little bit closer at him and going, yeah, but is he really? Is he really? And again, he's not bad. I'm not saying he's bad, but is he cumulatively slight mid, below mid, a little bit below mid-ish? Kind of feels like that to me. Feels like you'd say like 16th, 15th best quarterback in the sport, which when you're paying a guy that amount of money, I mean, I don't think that's what you want to be. Paying top money for mid play is probably not the smartest choice organizationally from the Cardinals' perspective there. Rainey TTV, thank you for the $2 donation, Rainey. Did you see Ryan Grubb in his bag for Alabama Saturday? Yeah, Grubby. Alabama got the worst of Grubby, and you sort of cringed, didn't you, watching the game more than a few times because you went, ooh, that looks familiar. Oh, I know that play call. Oh, what are we doing here with this? And it is kind of strange. I thought going back to college level of this, that there would be more, he'd be back in his, kind of his right pond, and he would be back in his bag and everything would be okay and good to go. Alabama program still very well stocked with talent. You got the Williams kid out there at the receiver position, but Grubb's vibes from Seattle seem to have carried over to him with Alabama. And now, they're starting a new quarterback there. That's always going to be tough. First game of the season, new quarterback. They had a couple guys go in the draft, but Alabama always has a couple guys go in the draft. But certainly it was confirmation as you're watching that game a little bit as a Hawk fan of, this wasn't just merely we had an OC that wasn't getting the job done, but in a lot of ways was failing at his job at outright. And there was a lot of people after this, and they're probably not going to be speaking up much right now, but there was a lot of people right after the year when we fired Grubb that were saying, we got to give him another year. You can't fire him after 1 year. And I said, no, you can. When it's that bad, when there are that few little glimmers of light, you absolutely at that point can come in there and say, you know what? It is you. It's not us. No, it's you. No, it's all you. And I wish Grubb a lot of success, but that was a smart decision by the Seattle Seahawks to move and pivot off at him. And then a coordinator is not one that you have to give 2-3 years for them to get their system in place. It's one where you can say, hey, let's see what you got. Oh, you don't got it. We got to go find a guy that does. So we'll see how it goes out there at Alabama. I'm sure it gets better as the year goes along. It's a tough opening matchup to take on Florida State right out the gate, and Florida State came ready to play. They came ready to play. I think you're doing that. That's in Florida State's house, too. I want to say it was in their stadium. It's a tough game. It's a tough weekend, too, for a lot of the quarterback play. I was watching a few of these youngsters out there just outside of Grubb in Alabama. You're watching Arch, and you're watching Klubnik and Nussmeier going head-to-head on that game, and it's definitely guys coming back for their first game after a while is how you felt. There's a lot of room for improvement across the board there with some of these quarterbacks this upcoming season. But yeah, Rainey, that was a tough look for our guy Grubb, man. That's a tough look. And those Alabama fans, they're getting a little jumpy on DeBoer. They're going to get a little jumpy if this starts swinging this way. They are not a fan base that's going to be known for their patience after what Nick Saban did there prior to DeBoer's coming in there. We'll give them some time. It ain't, see if they can kind of twist it around here as the year goes along. Daniel Bailey, thank you for the $5 donation, Daniel. If the Cowgirls start imploding, what are your thoughts on trading for Mazi Smith? Do you think it's a good idea? If so, what would you trade for him? Mazi Smith was a former nose tackle from the Michigan Wolverines, taken in the first round by the Dallas Cowboys a couple of years ago. Initially, it was my understanding that the Dallas Cowboys asked him to lose weight. I think it was Dan Quinn initially when he went in there, said, can you lose some weight? Which was kind of an oddity there where you're asking a guy that's at 337 coming out of college to sort of lose weight to become like a 3 tech. Supposedly gained the weight back last year. Unfortunately, his 2024 season, Daniel, was worse than his 2023 season. And what's really tough about this, let me go ahead and show it to you here as far as the PFF scores. This is also, though, beyond the PFF scores, what we had heard about what was going down out there as far as his play. And I don't have a lot of reason for why it's this way, by the way, because he's a guy that I liked coming out, and I'm not sure why it's been so much of a struggle for him to find his footing here. You know, with a guy like this, that it's not going to be there as far as pass rush goes. And you make your peace with that. I didn't draft him to be a pass rusher. I drafted him to be a run stuffer. I drafted him to be a solid nose tackle. But instead, what you get here, 300 snaps, 2023, barely gets on the field, almost doubles the snaps to 524, 2024, or 80% jump, basically. But you look at both of those two seasons, his defensive score is very low. But the worst thing he's rated on, the worst part of his game, is as a run defender. And that it didn't come forward last year with gaining the weight back. Now, it wasn't a good Cowboys team. It's a team a lot of people were running on. That's not all his fault with it. But again, this all matches back up to, Daniel, what we hear from Cowboy fans with Mazi since he's walked in the door there, which is that the guy's a disappointment. He's not flashing. The player that we saw at Michigan is just seemingly gone. You know, he's a diminished version of what he once was. And could be just the landing environment, could be just the vibes were wrong there first couple of years. But when you come down to whether I would want to look at trading for him, I think I would need to see some improvement this season. And this is the nice part about you saying in the imploding part, Daniel, is, okay, if we get through 5 games and Mazi shows he can be a solid run defender, but the Cowboys are still getting their ass owned every week because they just don't have the soldiers to get it done, then maybe I'm a little bit more open to making that move at that point. But I need to see significant improvement from his run defender. Significant. And even then, what am I going to give up for that? Well, I still have a guy that's a former first-round pick that's going to still carry a pretty heavy base salary both into this year and into next year. Even though that's half a year, you know, I need to have something tangible for those returns. So I'm kind of saying, Daniel, is if it's a trade I got to make blindly to where he's basically been already, and you're hoping that you failed in your first stop, maybe you just need a fresh environment, a reset. Well, I'm giving up very little for that at that point. You're getting like a 6th, 7th rounder for me at that point. But if he can be a solid run defender through this year, and he becomes the player in a lot of ways that we thought he could be as a run defender halfway into the year, and the Cowboys are still in a position of like, yeah, we're trying to add assets at this point. He's into year 3 at this point. You know, we're a year out from having to, I mean, essentially after this year, you could decide to give him an extension or not. So, you know, we've kind of run out of our rope with him. We're ready to roll a different direction. So it would have to be something like that, Daniel, where you actually see some improvement in his play. And I don't think you're going to see that this year, considering how low the floor has been up until this point. It's not just merely that he's been kind of below average. I mean, he has been awful as a run defender. Great question, though. I wish he was, man. We definitely could use some help. Chris says, I can't believe it's game week. Game week, baby. HSG, y'all liked and subbed yet? Please, thanks for reminding me on that, man. If you guys can for me, please do hit that like button, sub on up if you get a chance. Helps this channel out tremendously. We're trying to get over 20,000 subscribers this year. We're about 300-ish away from the 20,000 mark, so we are creeping. We are creeping right up onto it. You can help us get up over the top today. I really appreciate it. Let's see what you guys are at with the chat today. Appreciate everybody watching and hanging out. Our first game is so important. We better win. You never like to say this. Every game matters in the NFL, and it's a long season, and you never want to get caught up too much in the results of one single game, or certainly not the first game of the season. But to your point, Herbicide, as I think about this Niner matchup, I think that this is a game that carries a lot of weight through the rest of the upcoming year for your Seattle Seahawks. That this is not merely just a game of, well, you have a chance to get back to the Niners at the end of the year. You can even it up at that point and figure out what's what then. You know, that you can, maybe you didn't take 2-0, but you can at least split the matchup. It's a good team, maybe even a team that a lot of people think is going to win the division. Nothing bad in that. Nothing wrong with that. I think I would counter that. I think I would counter that outlook a little bit in saying that this is an important game. That if your intention as a Seattle Seahawks team is to try and go actually win this division and not merely make the playoffs, that this may not be a must-win kind of game as far as the Niner goes, but this gets pretty close to a must-win. The 49ers are probably going to be as weak as any time this year right now. They probably only continue to get stronger as the season goes along, if they can especially bring back Juwan Jennings. There might be some trade of Juwan Jennings down the line, and that's just not possible for a game strong, but they're going to get Malik Mustafa back. Dominic Pooney's going to get healthier as the year goes along. Their receiving core will get healthier. They're going to get Brandon Ayuk back at some point. This team's going to be better, more improved. They've got an easy schedule. You go out and lose this game with their easy schedule on deck that they have, you're behind that 8 ball as far as this division goes throughout the course of this season, because they're not likely to just fall on their face with the schedule as simple as it is. And then you are left with, at the end of the year, if that game does matter, then at that point, having to then go on the road to go win that game in San Francisco. And that's going to be a tough environment to go in there in that final game of the year, especially, again, if they have something on the line in that particular game. So this may not be an absolute must win, but there's some parts to it that kind of make me feel like it's close. You win, you start putting the Niners on that kind of trek that they're on at that point. You start that outright with them. You've got a bit of the potential now to go take a 2-0 with them by the end of the year. And that the tiebreaker can be in your back pocket, because this division could come down to tiebreaker a little bit, and you set the stage for that a little bit better with this. There's a lot to me that makes this game much more than just your atypical normal, just first game of the season, just work out the kinks, figure it out. Whatever happens, we'll get back to week 2 and we'll find our way. I don't know. This one carries a little bit more weight. Chris says, I hope Sam slaps Geno's record in the mouth. Truly believe he's a better quarterback than Geno. I think there's some stuff with Sam that certainly still has that ability with him on an upside standpoint to potentially surpass a guy like Geno when it's all said and done. It's hard with these two guys because to me, both of them are really solid quarterbacks. Both of them have kind of different types of skill sets and what they bring to play too. And in Geno's case, with what Sam's being set up for his success this year, Chris, Geno was never set up for that kind of success here in Seattle through his first 3 years. Say nothing of at any point in time in his career, and certainly not with the Raiders right now. And your supporting cast and what you're working with, matters and factors into your success in football in a major way. Even at the quarterback position that handles so very much and is in charge of so very much on the field. But I think Geno at Sam is very capable of taking advantage of the supporting cast in a major way, of replicating what he did last year with the Minnesota Vikings. Maybe not statistically, maybe not having to throw the ball as much, but certainly showing you that he can go out there and be a consistent performer from the quarterback position week in and week out. It doesn't have to be perfect for him, that he can work around a little bit of chaos here and there, but you give him some of these factors that work in his favor and you're going to get the best version of Sam Darnold. And I believe that as well. Sean, it would be nice if we could do online betting at Washington State. You can do drugs in the street, but can't bet online. It's crazy. Supposedly in October, this is supposed to free up for you guys, Sean, based on what I'm being told with Sleeper. So we are supposed to be seeing that right in October that you're going to be able to get more of this going on at that time. Jay says, I got us at 11 wins this season. That is where I'm at too, Jay. I'm at 11 wins right now. With certainly the potential to get even up to 13 wins if things really break right in your favor. I even could see them getting up above that, but 11 wins kind of feels about right to me as it stands. Ornacity says, we released Luamea for D'Anthony Bell. All right, so off of the practice squad goes Luamea, and D'Anthony Bell, the safety, then gets added on to it. This does make sense to me. It does. I think with Luamea, the coaching staff would probably tell you if they were on a lie detector test that while the guy has a really good ability to run block, his pass protection issues are so limiting that it's just not something he's going to be able to ever really overcome in a major way. That there always is going to be a negative to him as a pass protector. And you can mitigate some of this at the right guard position because those guys get so many double teams and help. But I think it does kind of just push past a point of reasonability as it did with LeMay last year, where just there's too often that he's allowing just too quick, easy pressure, doesn't even barely get in front of the guy. And if you didn't see an advancement of that this preseason period, as I don't think the Seahawks did, the PFF scores reflect that this did not occur, then you see why they would have made this move. Maybe you bring it back at some point on it, but unfortunately, LeMay just didn't show you a lot to give you a lot of confidence that thing was going to come far forward into future years. Addicted Parsons would have impacted paying free agents in 2026 and no first-round pick until 2028. Yikes. Yeah, it's a heavy cost. And it's a heavy cost that I think you're willing to pay, but you're going to only be willing to pay that if you're getting a little bit more of the bulletproof nature of things. I was moving for a Myles Garrett, TJ Watt trade, and heavily so if those guys became available because I wasn't as concerned about the age aspect of it. Really great edge rushers can be very effective into their mid-30s in this sport. But it was the fact that they could play the run almost equally as well as they rush the passer. And that's a factor. That is a factor. And yeah, you bring up, you're going to have a lot of free agents coming up. I think John, whether he's actually said this or not, has a lot of compunction here to want to sign a lot of these guys that, he's kind of anticipating and expecting a little bit of, hey, I'm going to get that breakout season from Walker. Hey, I'm going to get that breakout season. I know Woolen kind of broke out his first year, but basically coming back and running back with a lot of what he did in that first year again, a few of these guys, Aboye Mafe, a couple of these guys are going to pop in that way. And then he's like, yeah, earmark that money for them. I could see him thinking of it that it's going to break that way and that he's got the confidence in his roster that it'll break that way. I could see it. Fabrice is better paying multiple players with $47 million than just one. It's a lot of money. I'm making you the top paid player at the sport. We once made Jamal Adams the top paid safety in the sport. And you had to do it. And he came off setting a sack record off the edge for a safety, for a defensive back. More sacks than anybody in NFL history for a given season. But Jamal Adams had limitations to his game. And this was prior to his injury. Prior to his injury, there was going to be issues with him in coverage, especially the further you get him away from the line of scrimmage. But you made him the highest paid player for his position in the sport. And for Fabrice, back to your angle, yeah, you can chop this up. I think that's valid, what you're saying there. You can chop this up in a couple different ways to get more players and be a stronger team cumulatively than taking this approach, especially considering the first round picks you lose. But if there is a player that is worth that much in this sport, that is going to be able to break the bank in that way, reset the market in that fashion, that he needs to be the full meal deal as a player, that there needs to be no questions of work ethic. There needs to be no questions of buy-in. There needs to not be a limiting part of your game. I think it's pretty valid to take that approach to it, given the cost it would take to make that work. Sean says he would have costed too much. I would have rather had a well-rounded team than put so much on one player. To your point on that, Sean, we talk about the cost being too much. You're going to have to go over the Packers offer. So does it become 2 players, one of your edges, and a third-round pick? With the money you got to spend on top of it? Maybe too much. Yeah, the $47 million got me out too, Herbicide. We're talking about where these contracts tend to go. Myles Garrett gets $40 million. TJ Watt then gets $41 million per year when he signs his next extension a couple of months later. Now we have Micah a couple months later signs his extension, and it's going to go up to $47 million per. It's not just a minor little tiny bump from the last guy. That's a significant lurching forward of the positional value at that point and what it's going to cost. Ornacity, instead of trading for Parsons, if Darnold doesn't pan out, I think we can use the first for a quarterback potentially. We could, Ornacity. We could. I think you're going to have to probably go make that trade in the NFL with a quarterback that's out there at that point. If you're going to go grab a guy like a Burrow guy, has to become available somehow or another. Because unless we're going to get like a repeating of what we had 2 years ago with 6 quarterbacks taken in the top 12, there's just going to be too many other teams that can kind of out-angle you to go and get their quarterback. So the Cleveland Browns, for instance, right now, Ornacity, have 2 first-round picks for next year's draft. And they're probably going to have a need for quarterback. And they can package those picks and go get their quarterback. The Los Angeles Rams have 2 first-round picks, including the Falcons. I think that they're going to package their picks together and go get a quarterback. So, you are a team that maybe is picking into the 20s, potentially, if you make the playoffs. And now you go, well, can we offer multiple first-round picks that are in separate years? We can't overcome those guys to get that. And then you got to hope the teams at the top of the draft don't want the QBs that'll be willing to move with you to let you come up. And then you got the whole thing on top of this Ornacity being that John's never moved up in a first round in his life. Never once in the first round. But certainly I think Ornacity, if it didn't quite work out with Darnold or middling results and there was a quarterback out there available on the open market, I mentioned Burrow, but that's just kind of a placeholder thing. It's not as much as Burrow, specifically just, kind of a player that maybe comes available that at the quarterback position nobody's thinking would be at this time. I could see him doing something like that. But I think that they know too with this Ornacity, it's going to be hard for them to get a quarterback. This is why you put Drew Lock on a 2-year deal. This is why you drafted Milroe with the intention of giving him the 2 years. I think the team looked at the upcoming year and they're like, we're not going to be in a position to grab a guy. And there'll be some good ones out in this draft. I do believe that, but I think you're just going to be kind of stuck unless you can find another kind of second, third roundish guy that you could kind of fall in love with. Quinn, if we're not going to risk extending the tackles before the season, we're going to have to pay a lot to keep them. I get it, but that's the price. It's true. And John seems to indicate with both these two guys that he wants to see more. I think he likes the thought with Cross that you've got the 4th year, you've got the 5th year option there as a bit of leverage up against him. In Lucas's case, you get it that they probably want to just see that the health holds up and can hold up for multiple games for a season. Haven't seen it yet since he's come in here. So I can understand on both of these accounts, John wanting to maybe wait a little bit. I think on Cross's case that the cost is going to be fairly similar to what it will cost after the year if you put Cross on extension right now. I don't think there's a significant savings there because he's kind of already done enough, especially being with the pedigree of a former top 10 first-round pick. He's done enough to earn the right to say, you got to make me paid at that mark that guys are paid at equivalent to where I'm at. With Lucas, it's not as much the case, in my opinion there. Nice try, government. I love the name. Thank you for subscribing and answering the call, heeding the call, and getting subscribed up to the channel. Very, 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 very kind of you for doing that. I appreciate it. Daniel Bailey with another $2 donation. Thank you, Daniel. He says, Sounders won the league championship last night. Well, shout out. Let's get, where's my applause button? Shout out to the Sounders. Well done. They've been doing really well. I think they've got a couple of these, don't they? They got a couple of these championships, if I'm not mistaken, out there. So Sounders out there kicking ass, taking names. Let's go. Congratulations. Hell yeah. Let's keep that championship run going now, Daniel. So we go Sounders, Mariners, Seahawks. It just keeps rolling. I mean, technically Oklahoma City won, so that's technically the Sonics if you think about this. So it's technically like Sonics, Sounders, Mariners, Seahawks. Wouldn't that be cool? HSG Bradford better not be in a Fetty. Oh, no. Fetty's the right tackle, so he's definitely not going to be that bad. And I agree with Ornacity. I think Bradford has shown some improvement. He's come a little bit forward. Got to give the kid some props. Did Haynes make the practice squad? Thrillhouse asks. Haynes is on the IR right now with the old pectoral injury. His boobie's hurting. Kendrick Lamar, hey B. I see there is a few teams that are over the cap space. When do they have to get under cap? By the way, Atlanta is screwed with that Kirk deal. Yeah, Atlanta's in a pickle with the Kirk Cousins deal. I think that if they weren't in such a pickle with it, they probably would have looked to have moved him this offseason. But they didn't. I believe by game one, I think you've got to be underneath the cap by that point. So, you can convert base to bonus with certain guys. To your point on the where we're at cap-wise, because I think you bring up a good point about taking a look at this. I think it's worth noting. It's also just to get you guys kind of stoked a little bit. Let me see if I can bring this up here. But there is definitely some teams right now that are sitting in some kind of wonky cap space situation. So your Seattle Seahawks right now are 6th most in cap space with $24 million. It's been pulled down a little bit, by the way. I hadn't realized this myself, but when I kind of went through and looked through everything on this, my God, the dead money, the injured reserve money that you've got on the books, like, holy Lord here. You got Hankins, Riley Mills is almost $3 million on non-football injury. You got injured reserve, another $4 million there between Christian Haynes, Kenny McIntosh, Finley, Plumlee, Wesley Steiner. What the hell? Who is that? Then you got the practice squad, of course, and then all of the dead money accumulating upwards of almost $78 million on the cap on that side of it. So you are in a little bit of lesser a spot, but you're in a beautiful spot compared to a lot of these teams that you just talked about. The Giants are down there at negative $9.6 million. How can you be that bad and that deep in bad cap space? Falcons at 8.7 in negative money. The Bills at 6.3. That's understandable. They're going for it. Texans 3.1. And then you can see a lot of these other teams have less than $10 million. Nearly a third of the league, I'd say, has either less than $10 million of money to spend or they're in the negative on that realm of things. Kind of interesting, though, is that you do look at the West and that of those top 7 teams that have cap space, you have your Seahawks and Cardinals and 49ers, 3 of those top teams out there. Just shows you that there's a lot of flexibility within this division of teams being able to make some more supplemental moves throughout the course of this year, that nobody's really up against the cap per se. If they want to do some extra things, though, with the Cowboys, they're also eating $100 million of dead money on the other side of this. So, there's some teams in some weird spots, but I believe that it's before game 1, Kendrick, that you have to essentially rework some deals, which is what they'll do. They'll base to bonus a couple of deals and get themselves under the cap, but they're very tied into it. Being negative $9 million a week out of the season. I don't even know what the Giants are really going to do there. Like, they might have to take Andrew Thomas and convert his base to bonus, or Dexter Lawrence. One of those two guys is going to be the requirement. Where are we going to play Ivy? Defensive line or outside linebacker? He's going to be an edge more often than not, Herbicide, but he's a guy because of his size who can be kicked into 3 tech occasionally. I would just say that I don't know if he's even going to be active roster game days. And then with already so many snaps of players that you have that are earmarked for the 3-tech position herbicide, Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams, Jaron Reed. Once you get Riley Mills back, he's a 3-tech. All these guys are built like that there's really not going to be a lot of snaps for Ivy if he is active roster-wise to be kicked inside. But they did, to your point, do that with him in preseason where it was both inside and outside. And he was reasonably effective at both. But you're just so strong at 3-tech that you don't have the need to move him inside. Chosen one, is Charbonnet going to start? No, I think Walker's going to start. Though the team hasn't officially announced, which running back is going to go where quite yet. I don't think it. Maybe they have. I would say it's going to be Walker. Chosen guards never worked. When have we had a good OC? And it's been a while, man. It's been a good bit of time. And yeah, Dogzilla brings up a good point with Walker and Charbonnet. Who's the starter, who isn't? At the end of the day, both of these guys are going to get significant carries throughout the course of the year. You're going to lean on both of these guys. And a big reason why versus other years when you've had both of these guys is the commitment to the running game is going to be there. You're not going to pivot off of it. You're not going to look to pass at every juncture. You're going to be staying with the commitment level there, which means there's more than enough touches for both of these two running backs. Trevor McGuire, 2,000-yard backs. I could see it. The team has said, and they've shown you over and over again, that there's going to be this heavy commitment to running the ball. You had games in the preseason where you're running the ball 10, 15 times more than you're passing. I think in a couple of different games. I think if this team can just run the ball constantly, they will, Trevor. And they know they've got 2 second-round backs. If you're going to draft these guys, why not put them to work? And I think a guy like Kubiak, knowing that he's got 2 prime guys like that in his backfield, it's just going to lean him more and more into wanting to run the ball more and more, in my opinion. Trevor says Walker's going to make a lot of house calls this year. I think he is, man. I really do think he is. Redeemed, I swear if we get smoked by Ricky Pearsall and MVS, secondary better not get slacked. Look, this is going to be, you bring up a good point, and this is on this team right now, not to drop that guard. You had a Los Angeles Rams team that came in 2 years ago into your house and embarrassed you. And embarrassed you in a way where you just didn't have your team ready to play. And that's not me as a fan saying you didn't have your team ready to play. That was Coach Carroll saying, I didn't get this team ready to play. And it blew my mind. It blew my mind. But I think what happened in that game as much as anything is that you had a Rams team that came into that game limping a little bit. I think they were down an offensive lineman, no Cooper Kupp. You didn't know Puka Nacua was going to be what Puka Nacua became. He was a rookie at that point. They might have had an injury or two on the defensive side of the ball. I can't remember for sure on that one, but they came in a little bit in the same way of the Niners, not to the degree the Niners are right now, but kind of in the same way of limping a little bit. And maybe that's a little bit of what informed the team to kind of drop their guard. We got this at home, week 1 in Seattle. They're limping. Easy work, light work. Can't think that way about this Niner team. Can't think that way about a division rival. You do, they will come in and they will embarrass you. So hopefully those vets are already kind of prepping those youngsters out. You might start thinking like that you've got everybody in line and going like, we got to lock it in. This is that Carroll thing of take things week by week and championship experience. Like, this is a championship game. This is going to carry weight on into the rest of the season. This is a game that matters. This isn't you just getting your feet wet on the year. This is be ready to go because this is going to matter and this is going to count. And this is the NFL. These games matter in the NFL. This is not baseball or basketball where you can get 50% of the way through your year and then suddenly like, oh, let's turn it on now. Every game matters. Every loss matters. Every win matters. And catching an opponent like the Niners that are going to be probably as strong as they are this year, that are going to win as many games as they are this year, they're going to be in contention for that division title this year, to get them early and to get yourself that inroad to being able to have an opportunity, and at least not opportunity, but at least a pathway to going and getting that division title at that point. Man, that's huge. It's just huge. So I agree, Redeemed. We got to take this game. You got to go out there and take this game. Taker610, thank you for the $2 donation. Taker, he says, would you trade a second for Hendrickson mid-season? Well, let's first just double check and see where the Bengals are at as far as cap space goes. Interesting deal that they've got set up there. Okay, so if the Cincinnati Bengals were to move on from Trey Hendrickson like right now, it would only be a negative $1 million of dead money on their books. So if they the more they get into the season on the base salary, the more of that number is going to be increasing. So if you got halfway into the year that on a $9 million base contract, that would mean $4.5 million would still be on the hook in base. But that $4.5 million would also be not coming. So they'd have to eat $5.5 million. You're probably right on it costing them a second round pick for what they're eating. The only way I would be looking to do that is if you've had one of two things happen, Taker. One, you have an injury that's sustained on the edge and DeMarcus Lawrence goes down and you're to your three guys right now, and that's just not quite enough. I'm okay with doing that at that point if you're down, because I think you got to keep the edge group strong here, and you could see how that could be just not quite strong enough, and that there could be some needs for reinforcement. This would also have to be, though, Taker, to where you're winning games. You're up there at the top of the division when you make this trade. You're not a 3-3 team hoping he's going to come in like a savior. This is, again, one of those ones where you're making the big move, but you're making it to take you over the top. The other way that I would make this move potentially is if the injury comes in and then you're also just not seeing the steps forward taken with Boye Mafe and Derek Hall. If they're giving you Mafe's case, sometimes the streakiness that comes into play, and Hall's case, just some of the limitations in how he plays the run, and that maybe doesn't come super forward as a pass rusher. Well, if that happens, then maybe you're driven a little bit to do it at that point too. Especially in that case with Hendrickson, where maybe instead of the second round pick, Taker, you can throw a Mafe out there to the Cincinnati on a return and be like, all right, well, here's this. We're healthy. We can give up one of our edges and you can lower down the cost. Maybe it becomes like a third round pick or something, or a fourth round pick plus Mafe. And then they can franchise Mafe after the year, and they've got an edge pathway for them to be able to overcome the Hendrickson loss at that point. So maybe there's a creative way to go outside of a second rounder, but in general terms, if one of those two conditions was met or happened or occurred, then I'd be open to doing it. But not if everything's, these guys are running strong. You got your four coming back. Uchenna's coming back and he's good. Hall's taking steps forward. Mafe's taking steps forward in a contract year. If all that's occurring at the end of the day, then I probably wouldn't do it. If you're 3-3, I probably wouldn't do it. But there is a pathway if everything was kind of going right, the injury happened to where I could see it making a lot of sense. And I think to your point with this question is that when it comes to John making a move, I think by the deadline, rather than it being a move to reinforce a position of weakness at this point, I think John's more looking at this of, I'll be making a move in anticipation that we're going to lose player A at this given position, and we need a staunch replacement that can really get in there and work. I think he's thinking of it more along the lines of that. And if that doesn't happen, maybe he just sits on the money. Maybe he just doesn't make a move at all. I think John's perfectly willing to just kind of sit and stand and trust this roster for what it is, where it's at. I could get it if he took that approach. Thank you, though, Taker. I'd rather be flying an X-Wing. Thank you for a $5 donation. I really appreciate that. Very kind of you. Hey, Brandon, I really want to see a Seattle shove where the ball gets snapped through Milroe's legs and then Darnold hits a tight end leaking out. So we get Milroe coming up to the line of scrimmage under center, and then we have Sam Darnold line up just behind him, and then you hike the ball to Darnold. And then you could even have Jalen sell it, because like the hike comes and then Jalen just jumps over the top like he's doing the Seattle shove. I like Seattle shove, by the way. I'm going to be using that during game day. I'd heard somebody else mention that the other day. I thought it was funny. The Pike Place push. That was the other name that I heard somebody say. But I like the inventiveness of it, man. Very imaginative. And no team's tried it. I think that there's a lot of room, to your point on this, with the packages of how you could use Milroe and Darnold on the field at the same time, the confusion that you can kind of build up with that, what you cause defenses to have to prepare for during the week. And if they're not prepared for it, that you can catch them kind of unaware in how you're running it. But Milroe gives you a tool here to be able to be used in a variety of different ways, and not just merely lining up as a quarterback back there, but being able to be used around a little bit. I don't think he's going to be full on Taysom Hill. They've said that they're not looking to do that with him, but that doesn't mean you can't get a little ingenious with how you use him and get a little bit creative with how you use him. And that'd be fun. That'd be a lot of fun. Certainly would be having some teams like, which way we want to play this. We want to go all in on Milroe, or we want to keep an eye here on Darnold. Keep a couple guys just on point if he does decide to go ahead and throw it. So I'm with it, but I do think you're going to, whether it's that exactly, to your point in X-Wing, you're going to see, I think, a lot of creativity with the team saying from the jump, we've got a commitment to get this guy out here 5, 6, 7% of the snaps. That in itself says it's not going to be just all the time to have Darnold walk off the field, but that you're going to create some creative packages in this. And especially be really cool with this is you create creative packages that are countering, or you have built in as counters to defenses getting too aggressive and trying to take away the stuff you want to do. Oh, we've got 4 or 5 plays in a row. We're running outside zone. We're seeing them stretch too far to the outside zone. Let's do a quarterback throwback to the quarterback pass. They're going to overextend. It'll be wide open and just have them running right up the field on that. I think something like that could come to be in this. And so many different things you can do with 2 quarterbacks on the field at one time. I hope they do. I think they are going to do something along these lines, X-Wing. Daniel Bailey says, I drafted Walker in my fantasy league. I agree that he's going to be a big difference maker. I just hope he stays healthy. That's the key. For some, the question is, I don't know if he's going to be able to do the holes. Is he going to fit in the system? Is he going to pick the right hole? He doesn't run as strong as Charbonnet. And that's not the question for me. It really is just health, to your point. Health is the only one. And it's a big question. But he's going to be able to, the rest of the stuff is finally handled at this point. Quinn says, I'd dance too much too if I was K9. K9 surely sees more ghosts than Darnold did. Yeah, this is the inevitable thing where I think fans sometimes question, to your point, the toughness of players. And they say, I need him to be, he's just got to be tough. He's just got to not worry about those hits. He's just got to ignore that. But it's the human nature aspect of this that comes into being on this that you got to keep in mind. And just like with quarterbacks and the human nature there, where you get these guys blasted. I'm not talking like he's 5 yards down the field and he's getting hit. I'm talking that, he's got the handoff and he's getting smacked in the mouth. Here's the stat I was talking about earlier on this. I presented this before, but again, just worth noting again. Yards before contact per carry on runs to the A and B gaps last season. Eagles number 1 at 2.7 yards per carry. Seahawks at 36 at 0.6 yards. Folks, these aren't outside zone runs. These aren't pitch plays. I mention that because of the fact that those are the type of plays that defenses can tend to have penetration. Those are the type of plays that are more blended in and led in towards you having negative gains. A and B gap runs are coming downhill. There's less of a chance for defenses to get penetration, to get push into the backfield. It's bang, bang. And yet your team on A and B gap runs was 32nd in the NFL on those kind of carries. It's not just to say that he hasn't had holes. It's to say that the penetration and the hitting of your running back in the backfield has been consistent throughout Walker's time here as a tailback. And once you remove that, you are not only going to get a better back, you are going to get a dynamic game changer running back for the position. I really do believe that. But can't be undersold that this is human nature and you can say, I want my guy to be tough. He's got to be tough. You get through 2 years, the guy's just molly-whopping you after you get the ball on every handoff, you're going to start to be looking for the molly-whoppers. You're going to start to be looking for the guy who's going to come upside your head that you can't see right after the carry. This is just the way it goes. It's human nature. And rather as fans and rather as front offices, you to say, hey, you as a player be tougher. Hey, you as a player, just take all of that. Just take all of that. That's not the proper approach. The proper approach is to walk back and say, how can we remove those instances from him as much as possible? How can we get his mentality into a line of, instead of grabbing the carry going, all right, when's the hole going to close now on me? Instead of thinking like that, we've got him thinking, hey, the hole's just going to be big and open, no doubt about it. I can take it for granted. I can hit this hole full speed because my guys are going to block this up right. You want to counter to the other way because now you get the benefits on the other side of that, where if you've gotten the negative elements of it, of him getting jumpy, him turning down open holes, where now you're just seeing him look that much faster, that much quicker, that much more decisive in his decision-making from the running back position. So that this comes down to things outside of Walker's control and things that are inside of the Seahawks' control to make him the better player, to allow him to be improved. Nagasa Kubiak had 0 good words about K9, only about Sharbs. We'll see on this. We'll see. I don't know if I'd read a ton into that necessarily, but we'll see where we get to on game 1 with it. I'd be very surprised to see Charbonnet as the starter game 1. Very surprised. William, hey B, do they trade for anyone? I think it's before the trade deadline if it's happening at this point, William. And I think from a John's case, it's a literal 50-50 at this point. I don't think that there's a player he's out there looking to target the deadline. Like he's got a player with Team A, and Team A has said, look, we think we're going to maybe compete this year. We think we're going to be good this year. We would be open to trading this player if we were bad. Check back in with us at the trade deadline. And then if we're bad, we'll be maybe open to moving it at the right price to you. I think rather than that being the situation that John's facing right now, I think instead he's facing more of a situation of, there's really not a trade out there that I'm actively looking at that I want to go target. Let's see where my team's at. Let me try to react in this in more of the anticipatory fashion of there'll be an injury here. I lose my right guard. I lose one of my starting cornerbacks. Now I go and target that position out there for a trade. But I don't know that he's going to be super hyper aggressive right now as it stands moving through this year. I think there's more of a wait and see kind of approach to this situation, which just makes it kind of all depend on whether or not you win or not, is whether or not maybe he's aggressive, whether you have the injury or not. If you stay healthy throughout the year, I also feel like John might kind of like his depth and where things stand with that as it sits. So I think that's a bit of a factor in this as well. Ooh, Tony Bag of Donuts. Thank you for gifting five memberships out to the subscribers of the channel. Very kind of you, Tony. Let's go. Very, very, very kind of you. I really appreciate you for doing that, Tony. So Kendrick Lamar, Daniel Bailey, Thrill House, Tasha, and Frederick Pittman. You've been gifted memberships by Tony Bag of Donuts. We just did a live stream show on Saturday for members of the channel. I was doing my fantasy draft, and we had a little bit of a chop up there. For members of the channel, we'll be doing a Thursday night football stream for members and patrons of the channel. So I will be getting that link out today, actually, in your community post. So if you want to keep an eye on your community post, we're going to be doing a 5 o'clock on Thursday, member-only stream. We'll be doing a call-in show within a couple of weeks as well. But if you are a member of the channel, Kendrick, Daniel, Thrill House, Tasha, Frederick, Tony as well, do just look at your community post, as that's where I put the membership benefits. And they will be ever expanding this year for you guys that are members and girls that are members of the channel. But Tony, you are awesome. Awesome, man. Thank you for gifting all those memberships, and welcome aboard, folks. We're doing great with the membership program, and like I said, we're going to keep expanding that this year. The patrons as well. Thank you guys, all of that support. But we will get a lot of benefits out to you guys this year. As really, really happy with the growth that we've seen in this department of things. And Tony, you are the man. Thank you for that, Tony. Appreciate you. Tony is definitely dog. Appreciate you, brother. Tribe. Dominic Pooney is playing, according to the accounts that I'm hearing on this. We'll get a final word on Wednesday from Jesse for sure with this, but it's my understanding that Dominic is going to be playing. Yes. Comcast, how much Seahawk talk can there be? It's endless, man. Endless on this channel. Adam says, yeah, K9 likes to bounce outside too much. He needs to learn to hit the hole fast. Kind of the benefits of this system, Adam Baum, is that this is a system that a lot of running backs will tell you that they don't always love, but it's like eating your vegetables. It's good for you, but you don't like chewing on it and swallowing it, from a running back's position. They want the freedom. They want to be able to make the choice wherever they want to go. This system more hard lines you into saying you have A, B, C. You pick one of A or B or C. There is not a D, E, F of choices here. There is not cut back across the grain, go back across the formation. It's this hole to the outside, it's this hole next to that outside hole, and it's this one that's a slightly inside hole. Which of these three do you want? And it asks the running back to make the decision and go. It doesn't want you dancing. It doesn't want you contemplating. It wants you to read the hole fast, make your read quick, look for certain specific things on making that read from leverage standpoints, and then go. So this is where I've said, I think, Adam, that you're right. The bouncing outside has been too much, but that's also a little bit of the giving him too much of the freelance to allow him to do that. Whereas this system is not going to do that. I also think that when you look at the predominant nature of how your offense has really featured inside run-ins more often than not over the past 3-4 years that he's been here, that's also ones that lend then to being bounced outside more often. Inside run, I can bounce it out. If I'm already starting outside and I'm already starting outside moving to the edge, there's not a place for me to bounce out to. There's just the sideline for me to bounce to. So that's where I think this outside zone just really fits K9 well. And it's going to give him that structure of the play. And it's going to make things a little bit more simplified for him so that he can just go and be fast. Trevor says vision doesn't have anything to do with defenders in the backfield before you get the ball. I would argue that it does, Trevor, when it is that mounting cumulative aspect that I was talking about. In a vacuum on a given one single play, sure, I'm with you on that, Trevor. But if I've got a guy that's being inundated with that kind of penetration over and over and over again, yeah, it's going to be human nature that you're going to get that guy thinking and anticipating that those defenders are in his front pocket here right after he got the ball, even sometimes when they're not. And like I said, I try to relate this back to quarterbacks seeing ghosts, and that you have quarterbacks at times that will anticipate pressure that's not actually there. That tends to not happen, that it's in a vacuum of a single given play. What's happened that's led up to that point is you've had a quarterback get blasted after throw after throw after throw after throw, and now they're getting jumpy to it. So it is a little bit of that, in my opinion. We may disagree on this, but I think that also you wouldn't disagree with me that he's had to deal with, and I just showed a stat that was pretty stark right there as far as showing that this data this data does kind of add up. 1 + 1 = 2 here. And that you take any running back and you're getting blasted 1, 2, 3 years in a row of penetration, yeah, you're going to see those guys probably have a way that they react to that where they're bouncing things out they shouldn't be bouncing out. I think you give him more of the clear holes, you give him more of the consistent holes, you get less of Walker bouncing outside. But we'll see this year. We will see if I'm true on that or not this season. Lethal Lance says, I just used your promo code, Brando. Thanks for the free $100. Oh, well, very, very kind of you for doing so on that. Good time to bring this up as well, as we got an hour into this. We are now being sponsored here by Sleeper. You can hopefully see them up in my little right-hand corner here. Sleeper and Hog Media are now sponsors of the show here for this upcoming season. I'm really stoked for that. And you can right now get $100 matched up to 100% on your first deposit here. So get $100 on the Hawks Nest, just like my man Lethal Lance just did over there when you go in and use my code, which is NEST, NEST. Use my code, get $100 matched, up to $100 of your initial deposit there. They've got some great picks out there that you can kind of go through. My picks here for the week. And on State of Washington, it's kind of hard to use this app a little bit as it stands right now because there are restrictions. But again, I'm told that some of those restrictions are start to alleviate and go away a little bit within a month in October. So look for your ability to use this app more in full within the next month, start to come up a bit more often in Washington. You can also use it in a casino in their kind of little Faraday cage of a network. If you're on one of those, you can use the app in full on that as well. They've got a little bit of a freebie pick right now with the Dak Prescott. They call it the free pick, 0.5 yards passing yards for his game. So I put that together. I've got Bijan Robinson, Josh Jacobs, and Kyron Williams all getting a touchdown this upcoming week. Those are going to be my picks for this week on that. We'll always be kind of supplying you guys those picks. But I'm really, really stoked with the Sleeper partnership this upcoming year. Going to look to try to get some picks kind of put in and built into the games as we're kind of watching them a little bit with that. But very, very, very excited and proud to be repping them. So thank you, man. Appreciate you using that code. And thank you guys to anybody else that does as well. Adam Baum, who's playing nose tackle? Byron Murphy again? Well, we're all anticipating Adam, or hoping, maybe blindly hoping, that Jarran Reed is going to make this transition. The team has kind of said in certain whispers that they expect to have him rushing the passer more. Byron Murphy said he's expecting to rush the passer more. Whether this actually happens or not, we shall see. Hankins is still just getting back into the building. You don't have any other nose tackles on the roster. My opinion is that Byron's going to probably get some more pass rushing reps this year than he did last year. But he got almost nearly nothing last year. So a slight uptick of that, a slight increase of that is not... I still think you're going to end up with him probably from most fans' standpoint, your standpoint, my standpoint. We're going to come out at the end of the year going, he's still playing too much at the nose. This is not the best way to use Byron Murphy. And they're doing it because for whatever reason, they just didn't look to address the nose tackle position this offseason. And on to why they did not do that, I do not know. Dwyer, Chris Carson was the running back when I first started watching Seahawks football. I loved his running styles. It's a shame his career was cut short by injuries. It really is. You got to watch a guy that runs with his ferocity, his tenacity, his anger. As we got to see with Marshawn Lynch, it's as fun a running back to watch as there is in the sport. And so much of the physicality and toughness of this sport has been sort of at times pulled away and minimized. And here's a guy that you watch is maximizing it. And then he pays the price for maximizing it. His body just can't quite hold up for the punishment he took. But Chris Carson was great. He was really good. Kieran, I'm calling a beat. We're going to have 2,000-yard rushers this year. If this run game is the run game we need it to be, I could easily see a 1,600 and 1,000-yard guys on the roster at the end of the year. I could too, man. I could too. I mean, the commitment's going to be there. The consistency is going to be there, and you're going to be effective at it. I could absolutely see it. I love it, man. 2,600 yard. Boy, we're having a hell of a year if that happens. I'll tell you that. I wonder if we have any starts on the IR list for game one. If yes, then can play Bohano or Peely. Possibly could. Hankins might be the one that's the question on that one, Addicted, whether or not he's ready for game one or not. Trevor's got both backs over 1,200 all-purpose yards. Love it. I love it, man. Let's go. All says, in the words of Marshawn Lynch, hit him in the mouth. That's right. I think I got that on my board.
If you just run through somebody's face, a lot of people ain't going to be able to take that over and over.
Mookie Alexander in the house. What's up, Mookie? Because Kyler is a great quarterback. Kyler is a great highlights quarterback. What I mean is his highlights are cool, but then you watch the actual game and it's far less impressive. Great thoughts, man. I completely agree. It's good to see you in the house too, Mookie. Love doing the syndicate there a couple weeks ago. I'm really looking forward to next month on that. And well said on your part. I think this is a little bit of the same kind of stuff we would say at times with Russell at the end, especially. In that, and I say Russell because you kind of have similar quarterbacks, right? Where the height limitation probably reduces a little bit of their effectiveness when it comes to running the normal stuff of the offense that needs to be run, the on-time stuff of the offense, the working the middle of the field stuff of the offense. But I think you bring up a good point, because what happened with Wilson at the end is that many of us had kind of started to already see a bit of the cracks in the ship and could see a little bit of this thing's gone kind of backwards a little bit. But what happened was that you had a Bronco team and a lot of the NFL at that time that were still so caught up on the highlights that they had of Russell Wilson, the big moon balls down the football field, the still occasional moments he could break through the pocket and make a wonderful play, that, you know, they just look at those highlights and you weren't watching him snap in and snap out of how he was just executing the offense, how much the offense was able to be efficient and stay on time at times, or where it always needed to kind of operate off script, off time, backyard football kind of manner of it. And I think you're right on point with it. I think Kyler is cut from that same kind of cloth, kind of by necessity, by the same size limitations both of them are dealing with. But yeah, I just think you watch him on a play-by-play basis and you don't see a guy that is one of the top-end quarterbacks in the sport. You see a guy that the limitations seem to be as great as the strengths. And I've watched so much of Kyler Murray's game now over these years. I mean, I watched every Cardinal game last year prepping for that NFC West Roundtable, and I kept coming away going, man, I'm just not impressed watching this guy play. He's not bad. That's where you just don't overstate it. You know, he's garbage. That's what we as fans do sometimes. You're like, he's just trash. He can't do nothing. It's like, I don't want to overstate it. He can certainly be functional. He can certainly be dangerous at times. The big play aspect is always there. But I walk away feeling that same way, Mookie. You captured it better than I did in speaking about it there. But yeah, I do feel the same way when it comes to Kyler. And those highlights get people caught up, but that's not what you get playing and play out. Kieran says, guys, in base nickel defense, there is no nose tackle. Laughing out loud, get over it. Everyone will have their shift taking double teams. You're absolutely blowing this out of proportion. It's not a blow it out of proportion situation, Kieran. It's not. Nose tackle is one where you're playing nose tackle, which is zero tech. A one tech is also a nose tackle, Kieran. So even in nickel defense, yes, you have a nose tackle in nickel defense. Zero tech nose tackle is over the top of the center. So I think that's maybe what you're referencing. No, not everyone is going to have their shift at taking on double teams. This kind of shows a little bit of lack of understanding on how the formations are set up defensively and how one guy is set up to be double teamed and while other guys are not set up to be double teamed. So when I'm lined up as a three tech, I'm outside of the shoulder of the guard. It's very hard for the center to get over and then double team that three tech. It's damn near impossible because of the wide alignment. The nose tackle is lined up literally between the shoulder of the right guard and the center. Or if the formation flips strong side to the other side, they're going to be up on the other side of it, but in the same position. So that is a nose tackle position. That guy's going to take on double teams. So Kieran, if what you said is true, then you go back to last year, you spent way more predominant amount of the time in nickel. You were probably in nickel like 75% of the time last year. Well, if what you're saying is true, then we should see double team rates that are similar between Jaron Reed, Leonard Williams, and Byron Murphy. But instead, if you looked at the double team rates on those guys, Byron Murphy is through the roof, comparatively speaking, to those other two guys, because those other two guys played 3-tech. So it's not a blowing it out of proportion situation, man. I'm kind of surprised to hear you say that. I'm really surprised to hear you say that. Byron Murphy is a really pure 3-tech. That's where he should be used. He's an average nose tackle. He's an average 1-tech. It's kind of just what it is. It's not the proper way to use him. And you're not using him there right now, Kieran, because he's just so awesome at it. You're using him there because you didn't address the position with other parts. That's why. Kieran says the offensive line determines who double teams, and a lot of times is based in a base nickel defense is both defensive tackles. Yeah, there's duo blocks, there's combo blocks, but that's not what you're tending to find with this. Again, I watch a lot of tape with this, Kieran. You cannot take my word for it with it, but I watched a lot of tape. I watched these games multiple times. Leonard Williams is not getting double teamed at the rate that Byron Murphy was last year on the tape. Jaron Reed playing 3-tech is not getting double teamed at the same rate Byron Murphy is. It's a significant difference. You don't have to take my word for it, but that's what's happening here. And if a guy's getting double teamed, snap in and snap out, he's going to have a hard time being productive, especially as a guy that's not built to be your natural nose tackle at 330 pounds. He's 300 pounds. So there's a lot of snaps in there where he just gets kind of pushed around. But, we can go through a lot of these snaps if you want, Kieran. I can just show you play after play. I've got the cut up still prepped and ready here, and we can roll through them. But it was a problem last year. It was a huge problem showing up on the tape. And quite frankly, on this, Kieran, you're saying this, but like even Byron Murphy doesn't agree. That's why you had his girlfriend popping off this year about having to play the nose tackle role. So it's kind of why I'm surprised you're taking this approach to it, because even he himself is through his girlfriend, through proxies, going, what is he supposed to do when he's being double teamed constantly? What is he supposed to do when he's not being allowed to rush the passer and he's just got to take on those double teams all the time? Like, she kind of came out and confirmed that. Byron's come out and confirmed it, saying, I'm going to rush the passer a lot more this year. I'm going to get more opportunities to get after it this year versus having to put on the hard hat and doing the nose tackle stuff last year. So it's kind of surprised you're saying it's no big deal when they themselves are acknowledging it's kind of a big deal. Trevor says coach knows Mazi Smith, so if they make a move on him, like, it should be good. Heard they were down on him in Dallas. That's true. I hadn't considered that, Trevor. You do have a little bit of the connection between Mike Macdonald and Mazi Smith with the Michigan roots. Yeah. Good point. And yeah, they are down on him in Dallas a bit. Seahawks will win by 7 to 10 points and take advantage of a much changed 49er defense, but the defense may still struggle a little bit more than expected. I could see that going out that way. You do look at Amukia. We talked about the Niners with running back depth being maybe an issue, receiver depth being an issue, but you are going to be starting basically 3 rookies on the defensive line in their first game of the year now. That's not easy. That's a tough call at that point. Catalyst, in a 4-down front, there's usually a 3-tech and a 1-tech. Murphy was playing that 1-tech position last year. Yeah, exactly. Mookie says, I didn't want to watch the Grub at Bama, but if this season goes bad, I'm totally going to call him and DeBoer the ultimate Michael Penix merchants. It does start to look a little bit of like maybe you just caught lightning in a lucky bottle there and things were just at the right place, right time with Washington and Penix, being there on that side of it. We may come to find that that's a little bit of the reality there. So I'm kind of watching that too with that sort of same interested eye, Mookie, to see how this plays out down there. And if that is going to turn out to be the case a little bit. They had some, of course, what was it? Fresno, right? Where him and both Grubb were at Fresno, Jake Haener, they were able to get a good team put together out there as well, which is what got him to get the Washington job. But it's been kind of rough coming over there to Alabama. It's not been smooth sailing at all. I thought last year some of that was just kind of from losing Grubb and not having to scramble a little bit on that one. But maybe it's a little bit more than that. Trevor says, do we stick Williams on Williams early downs this week? Do we stick Williams on Williams? So we got Michael Williams. Williams. You got me confused. Oh, Leonard Williams. Okay, there we go. We stick Williams on Williams. I'm misunderstanding, I guess, a little bit there, Trevor. I'm not sure who the Williams would be. I was thinking the Michael. There's so many Williams, so both teams have multiple Williams, I feel like. You might have to elaborate on that one. Boo, Hawks Nest. There is a prevailing thought that Kubiak has a low ceiling because of middling prior stops. Coach Lyle was middling in Cleveland and Houston before Atlanta. Thoughts? It's kind of simplistic, I think, from people's outlook on this. I don't know how they call what he did with Minnesota in his first stop as middling. A pretty successful offense when he was their OC in Minnesota. And last year with New Orleans, they were a very dynamic offense with a limited amount of talent, in my opinion, that they were very dynamic through that first half of the schedule. And then when your offense got decimated by injuries, then your offense sucked. When you had Spencer Rattler starting football games for you, then your offense sucked. Is Kubiak not able to get Spencer Rattler in his rookie year to play better? An example of Kubiak only guiding middling offenses? I think what happens here, Boo, I see this a lot when I tend to find bad takes out there when it comes to players, coaches, organizations. There's a heavy drive within fan bases and within people to look at football and simplify things down. Rather than get into the depths of things and unpack the depths of things, let's just simplify. You know, because if you simplify, it makes it easier to understand. If I got to deal with things complicated that got multiple layers to it, I got to think about all that stuff in my head at one time. People don't like to do that. They like to drive things down to a point of simplicity. You know, is Kubiak good or is he bad? Is he middling or is he this? How do I get to a simple outlook on a particular situation there? So I would say that he's not been middling at his prior stops. I don't know of another offensive coordinator who would have come into that Saints program with Dennis Allen as a head coach, with the talent that was as low on that side of the ball, with Derek Carr on the edge of just about retiring, and able to get that thing from day one dynamically playing really well and putting up a lot of points. To me, that is a big benchmark of an offensive coordinator being very good at his job to be able to accomplish that, because you just don't do that by luck. You don't fall into that kind of success, in my opinion. But again, he had a solid track record at Minnesota as well, and people can't forget that part, too, with it, Boo. But no, I don't. I have no worries about Kubiak being a middling OC at this point. I think he's a very good OC. I understand he's young and he doesn't have necessarily the pelts on the wall some people would maybe like to have there, that it's been fully proven to the ultimate degree. But I think it's been proven enough. HHG, how you doing? I see you in there, HHG. Quinn says, maybe Grubb being subpar is an encouraging sign for Atlanta and Penix not giving the Rams too good of a pick. I hope so. And maybe Penix was kind of carrying some of that success and what he did, to your point on that. You want proof? Go watch all 22 Films' latest video on the Seahawks run defense against the Niners last year. Beautiful analysis. He's talking about how great Ernest Jones is, but you'll see. I mean, again, Kieran, you can take for granted I don't watch the tape, but I watched all of the games last year. I watched all of the all 22. I prepped through the all 22. I watch a lot. I watch all these games, so I don't know, man. All I can say is I disagree with the outlook that you have on this. And I could show you a variety of different cut-ups even right here. It's like, to your point on this, if what you're saying is true, then if I just grab one random video here, I don't have these videos prepped, right? So if I just grab one random video, then I should probably see the double teams going both ways, right? So let's just grab Ken here. All right. So let's see here. Let's take it down to 10%. It's a random play I just grabbed. Oh, it's not working here. Sorry, 1 second. That's why you don't do this live on this thing. Come on. Yeah, my stuff's not working here today right now the way I need it to work. Again, let's just do the agree to disagree on this one, Kieran, because I don't know if I'm gonna make any headway with you on your side of it with this. But watching the games last year, are there double team times that Leonard Williams will get a double team and one? But yes, again, predominantly went to Byron Murphy. And the Niner game notwithstanding, tape after tape after tape, he's getting the double teams. He's even said this again, Kieran, like, let's take me and you out of this. What does Byron Murphy say about this? What did Byron Murphy's girlfriend say? Unless you want to think the Byron Murphy girlfriend's watching the film and she's hearing none of this back from Byron Murphy and that was just her own opinion presenting that out, I think you got to acknowledge on that's kind of a canary in the coal mine on the situation here, being that the player understands he's not being used in the right position. He's not being used ultimately in the best position. And again, you did this because of necessity of the fact that you didn't have a quality nose tackle on your roster. You had a great 3-tech in Leonard Williams, but you also then didn't have a quality nose tackle, so you threw him there at the nose tackle. But this is a strange argument to be had because should be something that's a pretty settled debate along the lines of pretty much everybody in football of 1-tech is going to take on more double teams than a 3-tech and a significant higher rate than the 3-tech. Occasionally there's going to be the dual blocks at the point of attack, but that's not play in and play out, Kieran. That's more of an outlier kind of situation to how stuff normally plays with that. TheSeahawksNest, B, happy Labor Day. Happy Labor Day. Did you watch Arch play? Seems like he needs to get the rust off, but has all the tangibles. Sarkisian play calling seems kind of amateur. Yeah, they kept the training wheels on Arch in the game, which was kind of an oddity in itself. And I didn't understand where after the guy's been here for a couple of years, why he wouldn't be able and be prepared to run the full gamut of the playbook. But that was the case. Didn't play the best of games, had some moments, seemed to get better as the game went along a little bit. People were definitely jumping to conclusions on the performance and saying, see, this is an indicator that Arch is, that Arch isn't as good as you all thought he was going to be. I think that's kind of a tough outlook to have. People are kind of forgetting a little bit of the fact of the Texas lost multiple offensive linemen to the pros. They lost a tight end to the pros. They lost multiple wide receivers to the pros. They lost a running back. They're resetting a lot of that roster. I know it's Texas, just like Alabama. They just reset the talent through there a little bit, but that's also like resetting the talent game one on the road in the shoe against Ohio State, the national champions of last year. That's a really tough environment to go in and make a lot of headway on. So I'm not going to hold it hugely up against Arch on this. Let's give it the season through to see where it goes with him. He's going to have much easier games than this one. I mean, that might be the toughest game they play all year when we come to find it, absent them getting into the playoffs. But I think that it was a rough opening week for him, but that's a tough game for week one. This is why Thrill House is best to have teams that, play a bit of a cupcake week one, work out the kinks, get the guy to have a first start or two to get himself prepared and ready before you throw him to the kind of the wolves. Well, says if Arch continues to play like that, hopefully the Rams trade up both of their first and draft him. Amen. Amen. Yovan, how's he doing? Yovan says, Brandon, it's been a while. It has been a while since you last rode. Huge respect for all the effort and the awesome growth of your channel as always. I believe in our team. Let's go Seahawks. Proving everyone wrong. Well, it's great to see you, Yovan, one of my old school folks in the house. Hope you're doing well out there, man. Awesome to see you. And it's been a minute. It's been a minute. Thank you, though. Appreciate you. I appreciate you. Long time watcher on the channel. Hope you're doing well. Thank you, man. Seahawks 2, why is Mafe a bust? Yeah, Mafe's not a bust. You're just looking for him to start to take those last couple steps, becoming the player that you thought you were going to get when you drafted him. That's all. Dogzilla says Sleeper seems to have sponsored Hawk Blogger too. Yeah, they're sponsoring a lot of the Seahawk folks. This is a new program that's being rolled out with them. So they want to get maximum eyeballs onto it because this is kind of a new thing for their ability to be able to do it. And because, again, in Washington, I believe it's October, the stuff start to open up more in full to be able to utilize this stuff for people that are in the state, whereas before it's been completely closed down. So there's a big thrust on this to try to kind of get it out there, Martin says, I think if K9 does bounce around, then Kubiak will stop using him. I don't think he'll bounce because he'll have good gaps to run into with the Kubiak scheme and some O-line play improvement. Yeah, I agree with you there, man. Kubiak is not going to put up with it because you hardline the choices of running backs in the system. If you get one that starts freelancing too much, you're going to get in the doghouse. You're going to be sitting on the bench. So there's a very important point on this that you better be minding your P's and Q's as a running back and doing what you're told on this because they're not going to put up with it. And the reason being is that you tell the guy to only have 1, 2, 3 structured spots he can go to on those like outside zone runs because the hole's not going to be open for 3 years. It opens, boom, 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 boom. It's just like that. You know, it opens and closes. So the guy's got to be to it right when it opens and then through it right when it closes. Whereas other systems, you can have more of a bit of a grinding down in the run game. You know, mano and mano, your tackle's just working down that edge and he's walking him back and he's walking him and the guy to it right, his guard's walking his guy back. And it's more of now you give the running back a little more time to think and decide what he wants to do with it. But you hammer certain combo blocks at certain spots at the point of attack. That block hits, that guy's cleared out of the hole. You threw it. Now that closes back up. So I think this is really going to be a requirement of Walker in this system, and it's going to fit to him well because of it, because the holes will be there. Kubiak will be in his ear being like, just trust it'll be there. I know you don't think it'll be there. I know it hasn't been there for you in the past. Hit it full speed. It's going to be there. The first time Walker hits that full speed and he's got a 25-yard run, he's going to be like, bro, it can be like this. It can be like this. Okay, I'm all in. Let's go. Best quote of Sean ever? Hell yeah. Jordan says some of K9's bouncing around was due to no holes being there due to Pete's run style of A and B gaps and Grubb's just bad play calling in general. 100%. 100%. I do too, Jordan. I think K9 Sharps are going to have plenty of holes to run through. Yo, Van, I love that we'll be running the ball more this season. I believe our defense will be among the best in the league. Hopefully the special teams will at least be average. That's the recipe for success. I agree. Great thoughts, you guys. 100% agree with you on that. You run the ball. You're going to have a good defense. Special teams, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully they're ready to roll. Or special teams, yeah. Jordan says the only time I want to see Murphy at nose tackle is when Lawrence and Leo are on the field and it's a NASCAR type front. I'm with that. Yeah, I'm totally with that. Passing downs, they're just able to get after it on that. Yeah, I'm good with that. It's as much too as I'm okay with some of the nose tackle stuff. It's going to be a necessary evil in certain respects, but just that there's more of an onus from the team this year to drive to get him some of those pass rush opportunities, because it's as much of the faith I have that he can be such a dynamic pass rusher when you give him that opportunity. And there's a reason Jaron Reed feels like this guy can be a defensive player of the year. And it's not with him operating from the nose tackle position, from the one tech position. And I think we're getting caught up on nose tackles. So some of this, I think, is a little bit of the semantics of this. A one tech is a nose tackle. So I think some of you guys are thinking nose tackle like a 3-4-0 tech nose tackle, and what I'm meaning by this. Like you're aligned heads up over a center, and that's been somewhat traditionally looked at as a nose tackle. To me, a nose tackle is a guy that's anywhere from 0 tech to basically like 2 tech almost, but like 1 tech essentially and 0 tech are what you're going to have that guy play. But let's get outside of semantics. The guy that's going to be aligned between the center shoulder and the guard shoulder, typically to the strong side of the formation. That's your essentially your nose tackle. That's your one tech. Steven Dominguez, if our special teams are bad, does Jay Harbaugh face any blowback from Macdonald? Mike owes his NFL call-up to Jay Harbaugh. It's bothersome. I think we all have a little bit of that feeling, Steven. Yeah. And I think bothersome is a good way to put it. You want your coaches to have earned their stripes, to have earned promotions, to succeed upwards, not to be middling upwards. And in Harbaugh's case, I don't think I don't think the Michigan special teams unit was all that great. And I think this unit's had some issues. I don't think he's adopted well last year to the new rule changes. And I'm hoping that this year he's going to show me a little bit more something than what I got from him last year. Jay Harbaugh's really had his job made much more easier than a lot of special teams coaches in this sport. You're spending as much on your kicking and punting position as anybody out there. The team, with the way that they've set this roster up, Stephen, with the guys that you have on the roster, on the back end of the roster, a lot of guys to give you a lot of help on both the kick return game and defending kick and punt returns. So they've set the stage to give him an opening here to be able to be set up for success in so many ways. And so if you fail in that environment, not a good look. Not a good look. And I'd have to think that the coaching staff would be a little bit like, all right, 2 years of this, you got to start to maybe look, no matter what you owe the Harbaughs, somewhere else if this thing goes down the line again in the same fashion. We'll see on that. Misfit Murphy led the league in Misfit Murphy led leagues in double teams. That frees up several blockers to penetrate. Reed or Murphy can draw double teams or penetrate. Reed will play more nose tackle this year, based on my understanding. That's my hope as well. Jordan, if you want to see a perfect example of why Murphy is a perfect example, go watch the goal line series where he moved so fast from right to left to get around the guard and stopped the play. Yeah, when you see him in those moments of 3-tech at times, the few moments last year that he was allowed to kind of do that, you got to feel a little bit of what he could bring in effect-wise. And look, Leonard Williams was such a monster last year, and Jaron Reed was having such a solid year behind Leonard Williams that you just felt good about the 3-tech production as it was, and that's as much of what kind of pushed Byron out of it. It wasn't that he couldn't be effective or that he couldn't match or even supersede what Jaron Reed was doing, but they just needed some functional play over at the 1-tech. Steven says Leo won't play nose tackle. No, he won't. He'll be lined up at end against Trent Williams. That'd be a fun battle to watch for a game. Leo and Trent Williams going at it, mano a mano. Sign me up. Sign me up. Misfit, I suspect teams who had a lot, teams who run a lot and a lot of gap concepts will mean we bring some of the extra beef. Maybe so. I'd be getting more 3-4 looks, more stacked boxes are possible from this. Martin says, I think the opener against the Niners is a must-win game. I know that's saying a lot, but losing the game would create such a negative vibe. I'm kind of getting to that feeling as well, Martin. I think if they walked into this at full strength and it's the aging roster that's in the early part of the year, so they're fresh and strong and everyone's got them as kind of the division winner most likely, I think you walk away from that going, okay, like that's going to be a dogfight. Maybe we don't come out of that game. But with them coming into this limping so hard, no Ayuk, no Jawan Jennings, no Malik Mustafa, an injured Dominic Pooney just coming back, a running back room that's been decimated, starting 3 rookies on the defensive line in their first opening game, Dre Greenlaw, Hufanga, Charvarius Ward, gone, DeMondre Lenore trying to work more to the outside than the inside, and a lot of the same reasons of like a Byron Murphy. Not because it's what he does best, but because the Niners lost Charvarius Ward, and they don't have a lot of other options on the outside. So now he plays more snaps to what he's not really aligned to do best. You know, this is just a Niner team where things are set up for your Seahawks to have success against them here. You really are. And it does kind of get into that place where maybe not fully, for me, must win, but it's pretty close there, Martin, especially if you have hopes of actually winning the division this year. If you can still lose this game, still go get in the playoffs. But I think that this is going to be one where if you want to have that hope to win the division, you kind of got to take this game at home week 1 against a limping Niner team to set the stage for that potential, especially considering how easy the Niners schedule is through the rest of the year. O'Dwyer, thank you for the $5 donation, O'Dwyer. It didn't put anything in your donation there, just the $5 drop, but I thank you for that, sir. I salute you. Appreciate all of you guys' support to the channel today. Misfit says Macdonald has his entire bag available for week 1 this year with this roster compared to last year. You're going to get year 2 of the Macdonald defense, and that's the extra. We're getting to the back half of the book now. We're getting to the good part of the book now. You know what I mean? We're getting to all the interesting stuff. He got the baseline on. He got the foundation laid. Now you can build the building. And it's going to be so much fun to watch this system run. Seahawks fans, I'm telling you, you've watched for so many years, so many vanilla defenses, 4-man fronts, never blitzing, zone coverage always on the back end. Here, we're going to get stacked boxes. We're going to get press coverage. The blitzing is going to come up this year, I think, in a big-time way, all across the board, and it's only going to make it so much more exciting to watch the defense play this way because you're taking it to the offense. You're being the aggressor rather than you being on your heels and letting the offense take it to you, which for many years here, and this even goes beyond Carroll's systems here, many years here, that's been the kind of the modus operandi of our defense. You know, bend but don't break. I like the defense of, no, we don't bend but don't break. We break you. That's how this is going to work, and we'll do it from the jump. That's at least the intention, and I love that intention. Steven Dominguez, who ends up with more sacks at the end of the season, Mafe or Hall? Great question. I'm going to go with Mafe. He's in a contract year. He's, I think last year had an injury pop up as he was starting to kind of roll along early in the year and things were going well. And I think he just kind of had something strike up and bite him. And I think it kind of reduced down his productivity through the rest of the year. That's a guess. But it's close between the two of them. I trust a little bit more in Mafe as a pass rusher. Hall's more of a kind of one-trick pony guy. And then one-trick pony can work, but Mafe's a little more well-rounded, a little more diverse. Mark Sanchez in the house? Misfit, we aren't listening to Murphy's girlfriend. Thrillhouse, Brandon, do you have faith in Derek Hall? He looks like the Hulk during training camp. I liked him a lot coming out. He's hard for me because, like I say, it's a little bit of a one-trick pony power guy. One-trick pony power guy is fine. Again, you can have, in this day and age, one trick, with that being your trick, is a good trick to have. But I haven't seen him really advance a lot of his skill set out of that coming out of college with that. He was a bull rush, long arm bull rush guy coming out. That's what he's been as a pro. And it's hard to just be, I'm going to just be stronger than every tackle I play every week, and that's how I'll win. I think a lot of the sacks last year, productivity-wise, came from the standpoint of him, sort of second, third effort gets there, coverage sack gets there, quarterback breaks the pocket, and he's able to kind of go track him down and bring him down behind the pocket, behind the line of scrimmage for kind of an empty sack. I think there was a lot of that in Hall's game. He looks the part. He seems to have the right kind of spirit, but I think I'm still kind of waiting to see that effect there more consistently playing and play out, is his ability to create pressure and his ability to be a problem off the edge. I think he goes quiet, and I do think that with Hall, I don't think that his ability to defend the run is going to come really far forward. I think it's always going to be a bit of a detraction to his game. All the more reason that the pass rushing has to be better for it, in my opinion. Gary says, me and B don't agree all the time, laughing out loud. And that's awesome. Because that's something that I talk about, Kyrian, here, which is, I want to have a part of this channel. This should never be an echo chamber channel. This is a channel that absolutely has all the room in the world for different opinions, diverse opinions that might seem way out here on this side of it. I want all of that in consideration. I don't want just agreement across the board, So I love that, Kyrian. And I think that's part of what makes our channel, hopefully what can be a unique spot about it, is that we have so many different ideas that can come at this. And look, it's just my general opinion. I don't have a stranglehold on the truth. I don't have a stranglehold on ultimately where the reality is played out. We're all trying to figure it out, on that. So always welcome different opinions here. We'll have our disagreements. It's always in respect. I always appreciate where you're coming from. I know you got a smart football mind. It's just, we'll have those moments on it. That's what makes this fun. Makes it a little fun there. Steven says, which O-lineman are we talking about most next Monday? I say Lucas. It's a good question. They did put a lot of Bosa on Lucas's side last year, Steven. Now, did San Francisco do that because they thought they could take advantage of a weakened Lucas? Maybe that was a bit of the case there, and Bosa does tend to stay over on the blind side there. But I do kind of wonder about if, Steven, they're going to go after Lucas with Bosa again and see if that can be a vulnerable part for the Seahawks on that. Just wondering. I'm not sure on that. I'm just wondering about that, which would make it a hard day for Lucas to have as much of that impact and effect. Great question. I guess I'll go with Zabel, but there's a part of me that wants to go with one of Zabel or Bradford on this. I think those youngsters that you're going to get up on that defensive line of the Niners, you're going to be able to take advantage of that. I think long-term Alfred Collins will be a solid run defender. Long-term CJ West should be a solid defender in the sport. And you guys know I like Michael Williams, but in their first game, in their first action as a pro, I think you're going to have some snaps in there. You're able to kind of take it to those guys. So it's I'm kind of split between both Zabel and Bradford on this one, to be honest with you. Kieran says, I definitely don't listen to Byron Murphy's girlfriend laughing out loud. Well, I'm just saying, it didn't come from nowhere. She didn't pop off on that out of the blue, you know? And not just a girlfriend, by the way, but like gonna be wife. Adam Bob, Nice Meyer went into Clemson, looked good. He looked pretty good. I don't know if I thought I saw greatness out of him, but he looked solid. He made some real nice throws. Kind of just felt like all the quarterbacks were kind of getting through, even the good ones in this first week. They had to kind of get through we're just getting back to football. First game of the year, no preseason in college football. The first game's always a little wonky. Daniel Barry, how you doing, man? He says, I'm going to bet how much, I'm going to base this on, but I'm going to make a bet on how much games we win. Easy money, man. Easy money. Misfit Knight, ready for week 1 will be huge. Yeah, you need all hands on deck to stop this rushing attack of the Niners. That's for sure. Kieran, the random clip, by the way, B open showed Leonard being doubled and centered. Guard, single blocked. Just my point, haha. Reaching a blocking a 3-tech is not impossible. We disagree, it's fine. Yeah, it's totally fine. And if I have better preparation to maybe go through more of it and get my video up, it's hard to do this live sometimes. We're trying to bring these up. But I'm just as hardlined on this, Kieran, because again, it's just all the tape I watched through on this, snap after snap after snap of Byron. There's a lot of snaps there where Leonard Williams is getting single blocked. And it's a significant difference between the two. It's not to oversell it to say there's never double teams that come down onto Leonard Williams, but it's just that there is a significant difference between what one guy's dealing with double team wise and what another guy's dealing with double team wise. It's not like you'd go with Byron Murphy and say, well, 80% of his snaps, he's being double teamed. And then Leonard Williams is being double teamed at 55% of his snaps. It's more of like 15% of the snaps you might have Leonard Williams double teamed, and like 85 to 90% of the snaps you're having Byron Murphy. In my opinion, and I know we might disagree on this, I see there being that wide of a gulf between the two. I do. So that's to me a significant enough of a measure of difference that just speaks to, again, why his production was limited. Why did he only have, half a sack last year, Kieran? Because he's being double teamed so often. I mean, I guess I'd point to you on my question on this is if I take Byron Murphy and he goes over to the Rams and he gets to play the 3-tech position, because I guarantee you Braden Fisk wasn't facing many double teams last year either. If he gets to play the Braden Fisk role in that defense, you don't think he's going to be more effective than Braden Fisk was last year in that role? And if then if the answer is yes, he would be more effective, then if you can, I'm generally curious on this, what would then be your explanation for why there would be the difference of that production if it's kind of like-minded alike as far as the double teams go? Well, both of them are basically dealing with the equivalent, so, right? If you could answer that, I'm generally curious. But again, too, disagreement's always welcome here on the channel, man. 100%. Jordan, thank you for the $10 donation, Jordan. Very kind of you, man. I've never been a fan of Sark after he left UW. His play calling to me is more of, you have to fit my system play caller, and doesn't give the quarterback easy reads to get them into rhythm early on. Yeah, I think that I'm in the same boat you are, and thank you for the donation as well as being a member of the channel. I'm in the same boat as you are when it comes to Sark. I've never really been particularly blown away by Sarkisian. I don't know that he's necessarily a really great developer of quarterbacks. I mean, do we have proof positive of that with him at all? I mean, Arch didn't look good after 2 years in on the bench. That speaks to development. Quinn Ewers never got better as a player. That speaks to development. I don't like their offense at all. I find it kitschy. It's a little bit like the Grub thing, there's a lot of like manufacturing in there, and you're not asking the quarterback. Part of the problem and why he doesn't get development, Jordan, of quarterbacks is because he has them housed and caged in the system, and it doesn't have them then develop the quarterback traits that you want them to develop, like pocket presence, going through multiple reads, not everything be like a pop pass out to a bubble screen every other play. I know a lot of this is kind of part and parcel of what college football is from an offensive standpoint, but it's almost a little akin at times to the Tennessee offense, where I feel like the Tennessee offense is not well set up to allow quarterbacks to develop and get better and to be prepared to be pros when they move on to the next level. Instead, you end up getting players that you almost feel like you got to unlearn bad habits that the system sort of creates. So I'm in that place myself where you've got to acknowledge the fact Sark's certainly done some very impressive things with the Texas program. It's also one of the bigger programs in college football that has a lot of money and weight behind it, especially with the NIL situation. But I don't like his offense. I don't like the way he develops quarterbacks. And I think Sark still needs to prove it. He's got a bit of that reputation out there as one of the top college coaches, but I do think that there's still more that he's got to prove and show. And I kind of find myself in that way. He's easy. I don't think he does easy reads, but I do think he creates just easy plays. And then it just goes to these random, okay, this will be a structured up tough play. You've been having me with the easy button on for the last 7 plays, and now you're going to make this like one of the ultimate hard reads to make in a moment. It's kind of a lot you put on the quarterback. Kind of feels like too, he doesn't know all the way to utilize Arch at his best, because it felt like in that game watching it, and we'll see if this carries on through the years, there's times where you need to use his legs a little bit until he becomes more comfortable as a passer. And his legs were effective throughout that game on Saturday, but they didn't try to lean into that as much in the play calling. And maybe that's because Sarkisian's been used to having a Quinn Ewers there the past couple of years who is not a read option keeper kind of guy. But yeah, I'm with you, Jordan. I'm very whelmed by Sarkisian, very whelmed. And I'm going to be watching what he does here with Arch, because you've been given kind of like a beautiful diamond ruby, and like, are you going to put chips in that thing? It's going to be worse for the wear. And boy, watching Ewers lack in development, watching him just not take any steps forward, watching, if anything, in a lot of Ewers' case, him regress. Not only not getting the quarterback to develop, but then you're getting regression. The guy's going backwards as a player the more time he's with you. Ooh, not a good look, Misfit, I went to the Giants game last year with my friend from his first in-person game. What a disaster. Yeah, that would have been brutal. That was that was a brutal game to watch. That was bad. T-Man, we haven't heard much about Byron Murphy throughout camp. Are you worried that he has a sophomore slump type of year? Oh, no. I mean, we've heard plenty of good stuff from people, including his teammates, talking about him being ready to go. So, no, I mean, for me, I think that it's just a matter of, as we're kind of talking about here, it's just a matter of, can you get this guy out of the, can you get this guy out of the doldrums of the nose tackle role, the one tack role? Can you peel some of the double teams away? Let's just get out of nose tackle, one tack, the semantics of that. Can you peel some of the double team snaps away from Byron Murphy so we can find some more effectiveness? And my hope is yes, T-Man. But also at the end of the day with this, you did nothing to go out there and address a nose tackle in the open market this offseason. You brought back Jonathan Hankins, who's been injured throughout training camp. Don't know how ready he really is to play. We're thinking maybe Jaron Reed will transition back into nose tackle, and that's the way you're going to roll with this. But we might come to find that Byron's out there eating up 85%, 90% of the double teams again, snap in and snap out. It's very possible. It's hard to predict on this. And I would say that if that is the case and he's dealing with that play in and play out, then that's not going to mean he's slumping. That's just meaning you're depressing his value, playing him out of a position where he could be more effective in other places. But you also understand, even if they take, as much as I don't like that being the way that this all shakes out, you also get it from a Hawks front office perspective or coaching perspective, because they look at Leonard Williams and they're like, look, we've got one of the top 6 most dynamic defensive tackle 3 techs in the sport right now. Let's ride or die with him on this, and we'll make do at the other spots. Maybe it's a way that plays out. So hard to say there, T-Man, but teammates, including even Jaron Reed, said that he thinks this guy can be Defensive Player of the Year here, and hyping him up to a big degree. Maybe not making a ton of plays that you're hearing about in practice, But I would offer to you that. Who are we hearing about like that? I didn't hear about Boye Mafe making a single play throughout training camp. I didn't hear about Derek Hall making really, outside of throwing a guy to the ground on one day of training camp. I didn't hear him making any plays really in training camp. I didn't hear about Jaron Reed making any plays in training camp. So I would just offer that, we'd always hear a lot about those kind of guys. Some of that is a little bit too having to do with some of the reporters being limited in what they can say and what they can report about. 50TY, are we still feeling confident in this game now that Juwan Jennings is back at practice? Did he go to practice today? There we go. I am still feeling confident in it, yeah. I mean, Juwan Jennings has missed all of training camp. He's going to come back for a week of practices, and he's just going to be at 100% fully ready to go, not needing training camp. Maybe he's just that good. I tend to be a guy that veterans try to tell you and players try to tell you at times that they don't need training camp on it. I tend to be a guy that goes, no, I agree with the coaches. You need training camp. You got to prepare your body. It's not something where you can just go from 0 to 100 on. Missing all of training camp is going to have an effect on Jennings' game. But it's good for the Niners. Michael Z. Parsons can't defend the run, so all he can do is go after the quarterback. Yeah, he's kind of an average, slightly below average run defender when it's all said and done. It's what he does is he makes his money off going after the passer. Hard to spend $47 million on that when you have a little bit of the limitation on the other side of that, to your point. Dig the worst pumpkin? She's out lounging right now. She's lounging. Steven says, I'm worried about Murphy, both because there was zero buzz about him in training camp preseason, also because we have no nose tackle to help him move to 3. Well, let me give you a Jaron Reed quote here. Let me get you a little hyped up here with the Jaron Reed quote here. If I can find this stupid thing. If I can find. I don't think Jaron Reed's one that's normally talked about this like about players, by the way. That's why I want to use this quote. I've presented it before, but let's see if this gets you a little bit more hyped up here, Steven.
In my mind, I can see him being defensive player of the year. In my mind, he's a great guy, man. He works hard. He listens. He's strong as shit. He's fast, and he's strong as shit. And I don't think nobody's going to be able to block him for real.
There you go. So, I mean, he's pretty through the roof on him as far as his outlook goes. And I've not heard Jaron ever talk about players kind of like that in that way, hyping up youngsters like this. I think he knows what he's capable of doing. But you guys are right. We haven't heard any lighting up the practice field, tearing the world apart as far as that goes either. I'd rather be flying an X-Wing. Brandon, even if we stomp the Niners, national media is still going to say, yeah, but injuries. Yeah. And that's the part that I've been pushing back on Hawk fans that kind of get disgruntled about that because, as I've said, I've dealt with this for 4 decades of my life, listening to the national pundits and the national perspective when it comes to our Hawks. And even when we're good, they're not going to give you a lot of credit throughout that time. That's the East Coast bias. You've got to be great to get national media attention out here in Seattle, and we're not yet great. So it's something I understand the frustration of, and I get it, but I also like it too because I'd rather be flying the X-Wing. I'd rather be flying below, no pun intended, the everybody's expectations, below the radar line a little bit. I want to be the B-52 bomber of the NFL, where they don't know that we're on top of them with this big old bomb right before we're flying right over the top of them, catching them all completely off guard. Thrill House, who's going to raise the flag at the home opener? Cal Raleigh? I haven't heard yet. They're keeping it under wraps. I don't know who would be a good flag raiser. Golly, I think somebody's tired recently, or who we'd have out there. I don't know. It's a good question. Cal would be a good one. I could go for Cal. Steven, Parsons get an epidermal. Yeah, I guess the back is legit, huh? It's like literally going to get an epidermal shot just to be able to play this upcoming week. Not a good sign. We just signed you for 47. Steven, Jennings is good, but won't be a difference maker in this game. He helps him out. I think that they're devastated if he's not out there. I do think that, but he gives him some functionability in what he brings to him, and maybe he's kept himself really in good shape. We'll see how it stands there. Kind of odd on his part, where it's like, I'm going to hold out. Okay, now I'm going to come back, but you haven't given me any money back. Well, what was the whole point of holding out then? Just missing training camp? Maybe, I guess. Possible. Laughing out loud, Russell Wilson. Someday. Steve, Emawari maybe with most sacks outside of defensive line, him or Spoon or EJ4. I think Ernest Jones is going to rush a lot this year, Steven. But Emawari is going to get sent his share too. I'll go with Jones just because Ernest Jones is one of the guys I do think is going to break out on this defense, where he's going to have all those tackle numbers he normally has. He's going to stack up a collection of sacks, probably get himself an interception or two, have a really dynamic season. He'd be my guy, but I do think that both Spoon and Emawari are going to get some opportunities. And as much as anything, because I think you're going to blitz more this year than you've blitzed here in 20 years. I think Macdonald is setting up for press coverage on the outside, stack boxes, and a good amount of blitzing on top of it. He's going to trust his guys on the outside, one-on-one a man at times, and here we go. I think the Parsons trade, bad luck for teams playing Packers this year, bad luck for Cowboys in 2025 season, but 2026-2027 season might look bright for Cowboys. Yeah, that's the part of this where the Cowboys are getting raked all the way through on this situation, and Jerry rightfully so, because he manufactured, made this happen. I think some of the question comes down to this from my perspective with Jerry of how much of it was maybe purposeful. How much of it was, if we just trade Micah in the offseason, fans revolt and da-da-da-da, but what if we can just make it to a point of like we had to trade him? And then they'll get pissed at us, but they won't revolt, and it'll be what's maybe best for the organization. And at the end of the day, the Micah Parsons trade is what's best for the Cowboy organization, because you were not winning anytime soon with Micah in there with your roster. You needed to reset. You needed to collect some picks. You need to get another year closer towards getting out from the Dak Prescott deal, where he's the highest paid player in the sport for multiple years. You've not been happy with that contract either. You need to get your steps in the direction of getting to there and turning this thing around. That's what's best for the organization. And I think that they kind of recognized it. Didn't mean that you get maximum returns back from Micah. Didn't mean you shouldn't have probably moved him this offseason in the draft and gotten more at that time. But you make your mistakes, and then you try to just make the proper mistakes off the bad decisions that have led you there. And that's what I think the Cowboys did in this situation. And they're going to be better for it long-term on it. Kieran says, we having fun, B. Hopefully a lot of this year. Going to get out, enjoy the nice weather down here in the South. Let's get it this year. Let's get it, man. Go Hawks, brother. And I love it, brother. I love it. This is what this place is about, is this kind of discussion, And it is not, I think sometimes I probably come off, and this is my failure on it, and being like, oh, well, I'm Mr. Know-It-All, so I just know better than you on it. And I really want to try to do a better job this year of preferencing when I have hard opinions, and when I go strong in the paint in that way that, and you know this, there's never anything personal with it. And again, I feel strongly about something, but I can also acknowledge that I do not have all the answers, and that there's plenty of things that I'm going to get wrong or be off on or not be looking at correctly. I'm trying to get it right, but it doesn't mean I'm always right to the nth degree. And it's the brain power collectively of yourself and the rest of this chat that, as much as anything, and I've said many times, makes this place really go. And I'm a contributing factor to it, but it certainly is not the end all be all in my opinion. And I certainly have plenty of stuff I get wrong with. I love, though, having the disagreement, because so much now, whenever you have disagreement, is you're either with me or you're against me, or, people get in that place where they just can't disagree and find still the respectful place to operate out of that. And to me, that's no fun. I think we can absolutely disagree, but still really respect each other and respect each other's opinion on it. And hopefully in that disagreement, the best part about it is that you hopefully, through those two ideas getting tested, that you get to the spot of closer to the truth at the end of it, or the audience does in general. That's the goal, at least here, Kieran. That's the theoretical goal. But I appreciate you, brother. Have yourself a great time out there in this weather. I got to get out myself. Dorothy Sims, how you doing? 12s are 1, and the entire team has brought, let me say this right, Dorothy, sorry. 12s are 1, and the entire team have bought into it. Go Hawks. Well, go Hawks, Dorothy. And I agree. You've gotten a sense of buy-in that is something that I can't prove it to you with 6 different items of evidence that you have a team bought in. I can provide certain things in the way that the players talk. Certain things of the ways you get veterans. They're talking about how they're leading this team and how they're taking on that ultimate ownership. I can point to you with full offseason OTA participation at the voluntary minicamp. But none of those things will prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. But the sense you get, Dorothy, is the same sense I'm getting on this, which is the buy-in is there for this team. That if I look past the last 10 years since we got to a Super Bowl, that in varying points in those years, I can show you years where there were cliques that developed in the locker room. I can show you where there were years where things just weren't always locked in. Listen to Luke Wilson coming in his last stop when he came to Seattle. You brought him in at the very end of his career, and he's like, man, something's changed here. It's not the same environment. The same buy-in that was once here when I was here before is not here now. Something has been lost. But now this time where we're at right now, you're feeling more of a different feeling and energy from this team and where they stand and how they're going about their business. I'm feeling the same thing. I am as well. And it's got me so hyped up for this upcoming year because I think it's been so deadly missing over the past couple of seasons, Dorothy. Well said on your part. Very well said. Addicted Brandon, I hate to say it, but I think Jerry Jones pulled off a Herschel Walker to the Vikings 2.0 trade. Not as many players, but salary cap savings alone, pick up 1 to 2 free agents too. Yeah, we're in the same boat on this, Addicted, where Jerry's getting drugged, and I get the dragging. Look, I'm knocking as much as anybody, right? Go to mom and go, daddy, you don't do that with me. We had a deal. You stick to that deal. Stick to it. But I on this one, I get where they're at. You know, you got thrown into a pile of muck. All you can do is just try to kind of swim your way out of it. Now, he put himself in that muck himself. But I again come back to this. Jerry this offseason decides to sign Micah Parsons for $43 million per year, $44 million per year. Do any of us believe that Cowboy team over the next 5 years is getting to the Super Bowl? With the salary cap constraints that now exist with Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons, those three guys taking up what? Probably almost like a third of your cap, if not more than that, every single season. There's no pathway for them to get in the Super Bowl with that roster. You're weaker losing Parsons, but ultimately you're maybe stronger for it because you weren't in a position to get the most out of him. You don't have a roster like Green Bay does. You got way more work to do than that. So I'm kind of in the place you are with this, Addicted, where it's like, I'm not fully on to like Jerry's won the trade, but I think that they made the best of a bad situation they created. And we come down the line on this a couple of years, and you could maybe see the Cowboys within 3 to 4 years now find an ability to get back to winning. If Jerry can get out of his way, if Stephen Jones can get out of his way, on the back of this kind of move, I could see it presenting them that. Thrill says sacks get money, not double teams. That's why Byron Murphy's girlfriend's pissed. Dixie Brandon, where is the cat stand that is normally next to your right shoulder? Well, I got this one going. I moved off the other one because they've only been using the one lately. So the other one's gotten like a little broken and they don't like it now. Brian's is sort of like, I've seen a lot of disgruntled employees, but I've never seen a gruntled one. Yes. Very true. Catalyst, would you guys want the Seahawks field to be completely natural grass? Well, I think that they're having the soccer team come in and it's going to be changed over, Catalyst. So I think we're full turf right now. I don't think that we're partially, I don't know about this though. So that's a guess, but was my understanding we're still full turf, but that it's going to grass soon. There's going to be a transition there. But I'm not sure on that. Catalyst, I did a long research paper examining the injury rates between turf and grass NFL fields. It was very inconclusive, honestly. I think what's hard with the data on that, Catalyst, is that the turf has like been constantly evolving. 20 years ago, it was torn up old tires that they grounded up, that was part of the artificial turf that took over the artificial turf, essentially. But then it seems like they've refined it more and more and more and more. And that whereas before 20 years ago, you leave AstroTurf, you go to this natural turf surface, and then there's still grass fields. I would estimate, Catalyst, that the injuries were much more significant early on with the early indoctrinations of the turf. But then as we've come 25 years down the line, that the stuff's gotten more advanced and that there's a little bit more of an even keel nature between turf and grass. I do feel like at the end of the day, there's just a little bit more safety to going with grass, and that it's just a little bit of a better surface for players to play on. that they still haven't quite solved this turf thing. But then again, back to your research, maybe we come to find within another 10 years of evolution with this and getting better and better, that what happens when they eventually are able to create a field that's better as a surface than grass. I think that's probably where this is eventually going to go. Bill Zimmerman, I'm guessing that the coaches are well aware of the Murphy situation. With our vanilla preseason defense, expect an increase in variety of calls. Murphy will be moved around. Expect improvement. I am, Bill. Yeah, well said on your part. I'm expecting this as well. I'm a little worried about him eating up nose tackle snaps, but I still think even if he's got to eat some, you're still going to get him some significant more snaps this year with actual one-on-one opportunities, actual opportunities to go hunt. I think he's going to get that bare minimum. Brian East is $47 million. Clams for an epidermal. I certainly don't feel great about my investment when I've given out that amount of money and we're already putting epidermal shots in your bag. I'm like, wait, I thought you were faking this. You're not faking it? You're not faking it? Packers over there like, wait, no, I thought he was slow playing it. Dick to Brandon, great point. If they trade Parsons before the draft, brain cramp here, thinking how big draft pick haul might have been. 100%. Yeah, 100%. Would have been way more. Might have even gotten into a third first round pick range of things at that time. In fact, probably would have gotten to a third first round pick of things at that time. And that's the lack of vision to their approach here. That's where they're caught scrambling downwind. That's where Jerry thought he could lock him in like he'd locked CD and Zach Martin and Dak Prescott in these same kind of negotiations before. And he couldn't pull it off. But you did the best with a bad mistake you made. You shouldn't have made the mistake. You made the mistake. Okay. How do I best deal with this now? How do I best correct this problem that I have created? Brian says, damn it, I've got this one freaking fly in my back patio who won't leave me alone. Geez Louise, an entire backyard, and this fly wants to be in my face. You got to get those electric fly swatters, Brian. I got one in my house here, and it's just like fly comes in, whop. It makes a nice satisfying noise too. Like it makes a kaboosh sound when you hit them right. Like when you really catch them good. I mean, it's an instant fly solver right there. Plus I got Pumpkin. She likes to eat the flies when she gets a chance. So she's kind of like a fly swatter herself. Throw a husk, Jerry should get to mention and fire himself. Who gave up Micah? You did, Jerry. What? You traded him. You said for us to do it. When did I do that? Damn it. Fire me. Get me out of here. Force me out the building. Hawk says, Brandon, what did Micah mean by I wanted my agent to be part of the process? Did his agent muck up a good deal for Cowboys, only to get Micah a better one? They had a handshake. Jerry for years has been doing something in practice that I don't know how he's allowed to get away with it with the Players Association, which is that he's negotiating with players directly and cutting out the agent in these negotiations. And it's been his manner of approach for a while. And on the surface of it, it's like, I just want just between me and you, let's just get this figured out. Let's not get caught up in all this and all that. Let's get this figured out right here. We'll hammer it out right now. What do you want? What are we going to do? And it's like what that's done. All that is a process from Jerry's perspective is not doing better by the player. All that is for you to be able to get the deal is going to be more advantageous to you than the player. If the player had his agent actually negotiate it. So it's stupid of Jerry. I don't think he should have gotten away with it all these years. The Players Association is NFL is one of the most feckless organizations of unions that exist in all of sports because it's BS that he's playing this game. He shouldn't be allowed to do it. It's getting around the CBA. So player wants to negotiate. That's one thing. The player's got an agent. You're doing that. Now you're doing some dirty stuff with that a little bit. So no, it had to do with Jerry thought he could just negotiate with Micah and that they had some handshake deal where Micah has an agent for this very reason. I have the guy I'm paying this percentage to because I want him to negotiate the deal, not me. I'm not built to do it. I didn't go to college for that. I haven't negotiated a lot of multi-million-dollar contracts, Jerry. Can you let my agent please do it? This is another one of those places where Jerry's being completely ridiculous and nobody seems to want to call him out on it. It's like that guy gets away with so much BS in his approach to things. It's kind of wild. Bill says if the Parsons has injury troubles, the Cowboys will come out well. Yeah. I mean, hell, if this doesn't click in for the Packers. And I'll say this, your hopes are riding on Jordan Love. And there's more to still be kind of proven from Jordan Love's standpoint on that. Not that he hasn't been a decent to good quarterback. He has, but there's still a little bit more for him to prove on top of his injury woes. The guy's already got a ligament injury here in preseason. He got injured last year in the first game of the season. I mean, do we know that Love's going to be able to hold up for a full year? And if he doesn't, where's that put that Packer team? They've put their chips in on this year, have the Packers. They really have. And so, it's something to kind of track and worth monitoring on this. Catalyst less lower body injuries is certainly a positive towards natural gas, but I would have to guess many teams wouldn't want to flip it as expenses rise. Yeah, 100% they're Catalyst. It costs a lot more to maintain grass. I still think it's kind of silly when you're talking about multi-billion-dollar industries having issues with maintaining grass on the field, as though like the grass would be this big, huge cost. I wouldn't think it would be, but maybe so. And every little dime matters, I guess. HHG Packers going 3-14 after this trade would be hilarious. That would be very funny. I got to admit, that would be pretty awesome. And hell, they're in one hell of a tough division, man. It ain't an easy walk through that division like, it has been at times for Green Bay's through the years. Jordan, players do say that turf is harder on their feet, ankles, legs. The turf grabs the cleats harder than grass does, but there isn't 100% undisputed evidence it does more injuries. Yeah, that's kind of exactly. And I think I'd listen to players in general on this one. I want them in, where you feel comfortable. What's the surface you feel best on? I'd lean in that direction too. Some players say they have no problem with turf, but who knows? I'll probably go back to, again, where I think if it continues to get better and better, maybe it gets to the place that it supersedes grass down the line. You can see how technology definitely goes this way to eventually it'll met out that. Catalyst says, I just think of non-contact injuries. Jefferson, Rogers, Murphy. True. Hell, that Arizona turf's been brutal for us, right, Catalyst? And that's all natural grass. How many injuries have we had through the years from Richard Sherman tearing his Achilles to, I think we had a couple of ACLs on that one as well. Maybe it's just a random, when it's all said. Ooh, War Chiefs has got a good idea, Brian. Get that eliminator shotgun that uses table salt to take out flies. That thing looks a lot of fun. I've been meaning to get one of those. You got to be a hell of a shot. Well, it's a shotgun, so it just you get the spray, I guess. Robin says that's got to be some sort of illegal for Jerry to do that. That's like talking to a defendant without his lawyer. It is, Robin, and you can understand why I'm just so perplexed as to why the Players Association would just be like nodding their head going, it's just Jerry being Jerry. No, it's a modus of behavior that's been going on for decades that you have left unchecked and you are fully well aware of. I feel like Jerry, in certain respects, because he is so old and he's been around for so long, gets kind of like, they just let him get away with it. Well, he's been good for the sport overall, so we just let him just get away with it. But it's like, dude, that's out of pocket. And it's kind of brazen by him to be willing to not only do this, but then speak to reporters and talk about doing this process and acting like it's just common for owners to operate this way. Like it's just standard issue. So I'm with you. And if he came to me and I was a player and he's negotiating with me, I'd be like, no, I have an agent. The guy's going to take 6% of whatever I make. I want him to earn his money. No, I'm not signing a lifetime contract with you, Jerry, where you're going to pay me in the first couple of years and then you get me for pennies on the dollar like you did to Tyrion Smith. No, I'm not doing that. Tyron Smith or whatever. Rest in peace to Ozzy Osbourne. Rest in peace, Ozzy. Rest in peace. It's good to see you, War Chief. How you doing, man? Aloha. Ball is well out there in Hawaii. We got more, Brian. More people are in favor saying get the salt gun. Phoebe says, I think people get caught up with the 49ers Super Bowl because of how bad the field was. Definitely that's the problem with grass too. You get the certain kind of rains come in. I know they got the drainage on right, but you can have fields go to really bad territory quick in those kind of environments. There's a real big kind of maybe push-pull here on this one of like good points for it to be turf, good points for it to be not turf, on that side of it. All right, well, we are 2.5 hours in. I think we will put a bit of a button here on the show. If you guys can for me today, hit that like button. I know I ask it all the time. I do. But it is something that helps this channel out tremendously. Gets me showing up on the algorithm, helps me get people to see the channel out there when they're searching for Seahawk channels out there. So if you can for me, please do hit that like button as well. Sub up. We're trying to get over 20,000 subscribers for the upcoming year. Really, really, really proud of the new sponsorship we've got locked in here for the channel this year. That's going to be Sleeper. You're going to see Sleeper Hog Media also represent me as far as advertising goes up over here on my shoulder as far as a constant graphic here throughout the course of this year. And with that as well, we're going to be locking in the Sleeper app here for this upcoming season. So when you use my code NEST and you go to the Sleeper app, you can have 100% of up to $100 of your first deposit matched. Now, what is Sleeper? Well, Sleeper is the best way to experience and connect over sports together. It's a one-stop shop for all your sports needs. You can celebrate, chat on games in real time with other users, get the fastest scores, blazing fast news and alerts right at your fingertips, play in fantasy leagues, and win real money on pick contests. So you can enjoy the sports the way they were meant to be enjoyed, together. Download the #1 sports app today, Sleeper. Use my code NEST. They will match you up to $100 of your deposit. You've got the fantasy leagues. You've got the over-unders on players weekly, seasonal on that side of it. Now, I know many people are wondering out there, but wait, in Washington, there are restrictions. Yes, there are some restrictions. If you are in a casino, you can use the app in full from there on any of the casinos in the state of Washington, and we've got a lot of them. But also, I'm being told into October, this will start to open up more for you, and you will have more of an opportunity to, at that point, be able to use the app in full out of Washington, where I know there's been those restrictions. So gear up, get ready for it to come into that October point. Again, you can use it as well within a casino in the state of Washington. But a thank you to Sleeper, and I just want to run this quick real B-roll. I'll be right back for you guys.
Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using the code NEST. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
So thank you to Sleeper on that. Really appreciate you guys using the code as you guys get a chance to do so on that. Again, NEST, match you up to $100 on your first deposit. So $100 in your pocket from me to you, and you sponsor the show at the very same time. But we're going to be integrating, we're going to be putting Sleeper into the show a lot this year with some of these picks and some of the games and whatnot on that. So you do want to download and get this app and have that all locked into place. Big shout out to Sleeper and for Hog Media for showing the love here and getting me set up in this. I've been wanting to lock down some sponsorship for a while here. So this is a big, huge get for me. I'm super happy with this and looking forward to this upcoming season, working with those guys, you guys using the code, and hopefully you out there winning a little bit of money this upcoming season. Like I say, you get the best of both worlds. Hawks winning and you win a couple of bets. That's a win-win right there. I thank you guys for watching today. We will be back here in 48 hours. I might come back tomorrow if we've got anything to kind of talk about news-wise that's popping up as far as that goes. But on Tuesday, we, of course, got the NFC West Roundtable. That's a separate channel that I'm on with content creators from the Rams, the 49ers, and the Cardinals. So I'll be over there on that side of it. And then we've got on Wednesday Behind Enemy Lines with Jesse of Last Second Sports. He's coming over onto the channel. We'll be chopping it up, looking at this upcoming matchup and previewing it. He can give us a little bit more of an update on Juwan Jennings and where the injury situation is at right now with the San Francisco 49ers. We've got the B&B show there on Wednesday at 12 o'clock. And then we're going to be doing the Thursday members and patrons only show as well, locked in there on Thursday. So a lot set up for this week, a lot set up for this upcoming year. We're going to try to, for the most part, have this daily show lock in Monday through Friday as we can, as there is things to talk about. If we get a kind of dead space, there's just nothing to speak about. We won't go live on those days, but if there is, I will go live on those days on that side of it. I thank you guys today for some great, lively discussion as ever. You're awesome on that side of it. Bill says, how can we expect the Niners to improve from 6 wins to winning the division with injuries and rookies? Well, that's the jump, Bill, that the national media is making when they look at the Niners right now. And I think that as much as anything, it's the easiness of the schedule that they're facing that's drawing a lot of this, because I really do believe, Bill, that you can make an argument that the Niners have the easiest upcoming schedule for an NFL football team that we have maybe seen for an NFL football team over the last 5 years. And it's not just like somewhat easy, it's like ridiculously easy. But you break it down well. All of those injuries last year, you're suddenly going to be better because you don't have those, or you're not going to have to sustain those injuries with a very aging roster. You're with your Trent Williams and your Warners and your Kittles that are definitely getting long in the tooth. And you have those rookies. You're starting all over the place. You've got different guys you're flipping out in different areas. No Greenlaw. Now it's Winters. No Hufanga. No Mustafa week one. Down essentially 2 of your starting safeties into this week 1 game from where you were last year. So I agree with you, man. It is just one simple thing that they're kind of gravitating to. It is the aura of Shanahan that's kind of carrying this thing and is kind of what it is on that. Martin says Jerry gets the kind of grandparent discount for bad behavior. Oh, it's just Jerry being Jerry. Yeah, it's the little thing of like what my generation grew up on is we had grandparents at times that could still be almost a little bit of times say some things that were a little out of pocket, almost a little racist. And you go, whoa, grandma, whoa, oh. It'd be like a Sopranos, Oh, what are you saying here? Oh, it's a little bit like that, and then you'd have your mom like, she doesn't know any better. She's just, it's a little bit like that with Jerry. I agree, Martin. Same kind of feeling. But I'm over here like, oh. Addicted Brandon's upcoming video with Jesse for more Niners will be must-see TV 100% there. It's going to be great. I've worked with Jesse for years. I do work with him on the constant over there at NFC West Roundtable. He does absolutely great work covering the Niners. He is the ideal kind of person to have on and talk about a team because he does the same kind of thing I do, where he's trying to operate from an even keel. Here's how I see it, honestly, outlook, not just with homer eyes, not just with built-in biases, but actually trying to look at his team and try to kind of, fully understand it in total for the good, the bad, and the in-between. And that's why I think he does such great work over there, just part of why he does such great work over there. But I'm really looking forward to chopping up with him. We're going to have a good time, and hopefully you guys do tune in for that. I will be back here in less than 24 hours on the NFC West Roundtable. We got a season on deck here this Sunday, the first opening game of the year against your nemesis, against your division rivalry. If you ain't tuned up for this, if you ain't hyped up for this, if you ain't ready for game 1 right out the jump, I don't know what you're doing. You better go get your pulse checked. You need to get a couple of those paddles put on your heart and hit you a couple times with that, because this is going to be as intense as it gets throughout any part of the season. You're going to have 2 teams that want this game, that knows how this game is going to loom over the rest of this upcoming season. From a Seahawks perspective, you want to set the stage, make a statement, say, hey, we're here and this is who we're going to be this year. So let's go. Get hyped for this team. Get ready for this team. Don't be looking with fond eyes to 2026 and 2027 thinking this is going to take a long time to come together. I think it's coming together this upcoming year. I think the vibes are right. I think the health of the team is in the good place. I think the young talent is coming into its prime at the right particular time, and you're going to get the fruits of all of this. So stay locked in, my fellow Seahawks fans, and don't you ever forget, go Hawks.